From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxton Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez. Here.
Madam Council, report on actions taken in closed session.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason and members of the board. Today, your board heard items 27 through 31 in closed session. No reportable action was taken on any of them except for items number 28 and number 30. With respect to item number 28, your board met in closed session this morning to confer with council and staff regarding the matter of William Hacker versus County of Kern. This is Workers' Compensation Appeals Board case number ADJ 8857391, a case filed by William Hacker for a cumulative occupational injury dated February 6, 2013, while employed as a senior deputy sheriff for the Kern County Sheriff's Office. By a unanimous 5-0 vote, your board approves settlement authority for a settlement of case number ADJ 8857391 by way of stipulations with a request for award in the sum of $90,517.50. Further, you authorize County Council to present the proposed settlement to the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board and to execute all necessary settlement documents, and further authorize the Auditor Controller to issue warrants as requested by County Council. With respect to item number 30, your board made by a unanimous vote, by two separate unanimous votes, your board first authorized County Council to file a lawsuit for injunctive and other relief against a new medical marijuana dispensary located in Kern County called Pine Mountain High, which is located at 633 San Gabriel in Fraser Park, California. The basis for the lawsuit is a violation of the county's moratorium against new or relocated medical marijuana dispensaries. Further, by a 5-0 vote, your board provided blanket authority to the County Council to initiate lawsuits immediately against any medical marijuana dispensaries that are violating the county's moratorium against new medical marijuana dispensaries or relocated medical marijuana dispensaries. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. My understanding is on the last item that you have that blanket authority, then you also have to report to the board every time you take action.
That is correct. We will be reporting to the board every time a lawsuit is filed against any dispensary that is violating the moratorium.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. We'll kick off this afternoon's meeting with a review of the consent agenda. All items listed with a CA above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by staff. Agendas are located in the back of the rooms. Please help yourself if you don't have one. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the board or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anybody, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So going through the agenda, under departmental requests, Planning and Natural Resources Department, items 3, 5, through 8, Public Works Department, 9 and 10, County Administrative Office, 12 through 19, County Administrative Office, General Services Division, items 20 through 24, County Administrative Office, Human Resources Division, items 26 through 32, and consideration for ordinances introduced on August 9th, 2016, item 33 and 34, matters for executive approval, items 35 through 39. Does any member of the public wish to pull any of these items off the agenda? Number 13, thank you. Pull number 13 off the agenda. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Motion on consent. I'd like to second that, but also recognize the folks from Boys and Girls Club that are here, Maggie and Zane, and say thank you for all your work in East Bakersfield and all throughout Kern County. But very happy to be partnering with you once again. So congrats. And second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Great. Brings us to public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on the agenda but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name before making your presentation. Anybody wishing to take advantage of public presentations? Seeing none, move to board member announcements.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I want to take just a moment to thank John Nylon and Sheriff Youngblood for attending a public meeting in Fraser Park this last Saturday and on public safety and clearing the air on a lot of matters, but I appreciate you taking time out of your weekend to do that, John. And thanks to the sheriff as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Supervisor Couch. Anyone else? Moving right along to item number 4, request for determination of public convenience for issuance of an off-sale beer and wine package store Type 20 liquor license at 3521 Mount Pinos Way, Fraser Park. Environmental review, general review pursuant to section 15061B3 of the state CEQA guidelines. Ms. Oviatt.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, members of the board. I'm here with Scott Denny, Division Chief for Operations. This case was originally scheduled to be considered by your board on July 26, 2016. However, prior to the hearing and after the distribution of the staff report, the applicant's representative requested a 2-week continuance in order to allow the applicant time to conduct a public meeting. We then agreed on a 3-week continuance to allow them time to make the appropriate arrangements. And I will be reporting on the feedback from that community meeting during my presentation. So this request has been received from Dolgen, California, LLC, which is doing business as Dollar General, to consider making a determination of public convenience with regard to the issuance of the Type 20 off-sale beer and wine, that's a package store license, at the proposed retail store Dollar General has already built. You'll notice this says currently under construction. It's actually open. It's been open for about 10 days in Fraser Park. They now have come forward and are asking, as a normal course of their business, for this ABC license. As you know, this is a sale of beer and wine for consumption off the premises. No distilled spirits may be on the premises, meaning no whiskey, vodka, or any of those other sorts of liquors. And minors, however, are allowed on the premises. As your board knows, we have been reviewing these very carefully. We do start from an assumption that businesses need a variety of different licenses from the state to conduct their business. And under the normal course of review, a Dollar General, an Albertsons, a Vons, these types of operations would normally receive a recommendation from this department of approval. However, we do look at the community specifically. The purpose of the ABC convenience license is to look at the site-specific community that surrounds the request. As you know, a Dollar General is a general retail store. They sell food, frozen and dairy, health and beauty aids, cleaning supplies, basic apparel, housewares, seasonal items, and they are asking that beer and wine adds as a secondary product line. At this time, we do look at all licenses in the area. However, to be specific, the ratio number from the state is to allow 4 off-sale, to allow 3 off-sale Type 20 beer and wine licenses. There are currently 4 up there. This would be the 5th. In addition to that, there are already 8 on sale that already exist. Therefore, in our staff report, we do talk about the fact that there are 12 active alcohol licenses. This does combine places you can go and you can buy beer, wine, like a retail store, as opposed to going to a establishment that serves it with food or just serves it as a bar. Of these 12 active alcohol licenses, 5 exist within 500 feet of the project. In addition, this site was originally a hardware store. The Dollar General was only required under our zoning to go through a site plan. Therefore, there was no public hearing on this matter. And this area is considered the appropriate place for such a retail store. The applicant believes the approval of the type 20 liquor license to provide their customers with greater convenience given the other sorts of things that they sell in the building. And we would note that your board has not made a determination of liquor license determination since 1999 in Fraser Park. Fraser Park is a relatively small mountain community and has limited retail areas because of geography for providing these services. As always, we provided you with the sheriff's calls. However, please note the Dollar General has not been in operation at this site. It was a hardware store. Originally, all the comments in opposition were sent to the state of California, to the ABC directly. We did contact ABC. We did ask that they provide those comment letters to you. You have those in your packet. Of the 64 comment letters, 44 were submitted with a letter of opposition. The remaining 25 letters have more individual reasons for opposition. Their reasons are specifically addressed as alcohol consumption and drug-related issues for teens and adults in their community is a problem. It would be exacerbated by the presence of more alcohol. There is already an overconcentration. There's a school, bus stop, residences, and a church where they're too close to the retail store. And alcohol is not a good mix in this area because of the children and other recovery efforts that they are making. We have provided all this information in the staff report, along with comments from adjacent landowners and others who support this ABC license. They are very pleased with Dollar General, and they believe that they would like to diversify the retail opportunities in the area. The applicant did conduct a community meeting on August 10th from 6:30 to 8 at the Fraser Park branch of the Kern County Library. They had approximately 15 community members attend the meeting, and Dollar General provided a series of conditions that they are offering for this project. We have attached their letter in response to the staff report in an addendum you received along with these conditions. Please note that you cannot condition an ABC determination. You can, however, suggest that these conditions be sent up to ABC with your board's support. But you can either say yes or you can say no. Only ABC, the Alcohol and Beverage Control, can condition a project. The applicant is volunteering these. They are listed on page 7. They would restrict the sale of alcohol between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. during their operational hours. They would only sell beer, wine, and malt beverages in manufacturer's prepackaged multi-use quantities. So they would not sell individual bottles. There'd be no exterior advertising promoting the availability of alcohol beverages. Signs posted in the parking lot would read, "No loitering, no littering, no drinking of alcohol beverages. Violators are subject to arrest." Parking lot illumination would be installed to discern the appearance and conduct of all persons within the parking lot area. This is under the dark sky ordinance, but clearly the dark sky ordinance still requires that the illumination be directed downward. Therefore, the parking lot could be so lighted. The Dollar General would be responsible for maintaining a litter-free area. Graffiti painted or marked would be removed within 72 hours of application, and loitering and consumption of beverages would be prohibited on or adjacent to the premises. The addendum staff report includes a formal response from the representative for Dollar General, who has provided you with their belief that this is a normal and customary product that Dollar General sells in their other establishments. I would note for your board that Dollar General does have a warehouse in Kern County down at the Grapevine and a distribution warehouse, and county-wide, I believe they employ about 500 people. We have Dollar Generals in almost every community. As you note in this addendum, they believe that the ability for Dollar General to sell beer and wine would actually be a convenience. Staff appreciates all the work that the applicant's representative has done to reach out to the community and discuss the community's concerns. This is a very organized community around the issues of underage drinking, drug use, and you will hear today testimony from many of those community groups. Staff continues to be concerned that because of the size of the community and the geographical location of this community, which has snow and sleet and winding mountain roads, that since Dollar General has already established that and opened their store without an expectation of an ABC license, that was never mentioned when they did their site plan, that we believe that because of the site-specific community concerns, that this particular ABC license should be denied. We also note that your board is under a 90-day requirement. You must take action within 90 days. 90 days from the date this was accepted would place would mean that you would have to take action today, since next week is budget hearings, and 90 days would place this in that week. Therefore, this is your last opportunity. If you do nothing on this project, then ABC has the right to make their own decision on the matter. The applicant is here, and I would ask that you provide him an opportunity first to make a presentation, and then Ann Weber Berkwit has a PowerPoint presentation. I would ask your indulgence to give her 5 minutes to present this PowerPoint and this video, which has been reviewed by the clerk, and then take public testimony. That completes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Okay, let's do that. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Michael Brewer. I'm here on behalf of Dollar General
Did you say
today.
Brewer?
Brewer.
Okay.
Thank you. It's good to be back before you again. I think the last time I was here, it was the day of the cat was getting awarded that had the viral video, and it was like they were naming the cat day for the one that protected the toddler from the dog. So it was an interesting, memorable time to be here. Anyways, it's good to be back before you again. Dollar General is very committed to the communities around Kern County and Kern County itself. As it was noted in the staff report, we do employ over 535 people in the county of Kern. We have over 18 stores in the county, and we've been building our stores in very underserved communities. And like Fraser Park is a perfect example of that. Our new store, while there is 4 other off-sale retailers in our census tract, I want to make note that 2 of them are over 2 miles away from our proposed location. There are 2 locations within about 600 feet of our location, one of which is a liquor store with gas station, the other which is a community market, a grocery store, a small one, similar size to our 9,000 square foot store. However, it's very common that you will see in a neighborhood shopping district, a commercial center, multiple retailers, even in the same shopping center, a grocery store, a drugstore, a gas station, that all retail alcoholic beverages in a close community, a close area, because that is the community shopping area. So Dollar General is no different in this case. We have other stores, they're 500 or 600 feet. They're not right neighbor us, but as it was mentioned in the staff report, there's only a limited amount of retail space in this area. And Dollar General, and it has been received very well up there, many residents have commented how much it was needed in the community. Now, we also want to add beer and wine to our product mix. It is something we find in all of our stores in Kern County. And so it is something that is essential to a Dollar General, but it's not that we are a liquor store or even sell a large amount of beer and wine. But we find that our customers want to be able to purchase all of the items that they need in one shopping trip and not have to go to 2 locations, especially if it's snowy or sleety out and raining in a mountain community. We find that that is a major convenience to the community as well. I want to make a note that Dollar General has over 160 licenses in the state of California. We have never had a sales to minor. We have never had any alcoholic beverage violation. And I don't know that there's a nexus between the Dollar General selling a small amount of beer and wine and concerns that we're going to add to youth access to alcohol or anything along those lines. Dollar General is very geared towards training our clerks. Our registers lock if there's an alcohol sale. We have to enter in dates. We put our product up at the front of the store so it's highly visible to our employees to monitor who is in and around our alcohol area. And we take that very seriously. And I know that there's going to be a presentation following mine that has a lot of concerns with youth access to alcohol, which we are very concerned about. But I don't know that it's a nexus to whether a public convenience is being served by the issuance of this license. Finally, I want to also make note that we did volunteer the 10 conditions of approval. We have sent those to the ABC, so the ABC is very much aware that we volunteered those conditions to the community. We do have protests, as it was mentioned, at the ABC level, so it is very apparent to us that we're going to get conditions of approval on this, and we asked for them. None of the other retailers in the community have the kind of conditions of approval that we're volunteering to put on us. Hours restrictions, no single sales, no signage. Almost every one of the other retailers in the area advertise alcohol on their buildings, that it's available inside. We're not. So we feel we're being very responsible and responding to the community, adding a very value-added store, and we're here to ask for your support. And if you have any questions for me about us or our policies or our procedures, we're happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Have a seat. We may be having some questions for you. Ms. Webb, do you want to go next?
Sure.
Please state your name.
My name is Ann Burnaught. It's B-U-R-N-A-U-G-H. Tall, I have to put that up. So my name is Ann Burnaught. I'm the director of the Mountain Communities Family Resource Center in Fraser Park. I also oversee the federal Drug-Free Community Support Grant and its coalition, MCASA, Mountain Communities Coalition Against Substance Abuse. So I'm going to just kind of skim the surface of some of the things we've accomplished in our community to improve the health and safety and our history. So in 2006, we received a Kern County Mental Health CBER grant. It stands for Community-Based Environmental Risk Reduction. It's to reduce underage drinking. We built our coalition. We started having monthly meetings, and we started learning about looking at our environment. What is happening in our environment that's causing access and availability to alcohol for our youth? And then how do we take those risks away from our community? It's a very important part of protecting our youth. For example, here's a community event that's been going on for over 40 years, and this is on the left an example of the unsupervised ice chest that you see there. So anybody could bring as much alcohol on that event as they wanted to, plus they sold alcohol as well. After working with this event for 3 years, they took into consideration the health issues, what it was causing for our youth, because if it's available, if alcohol is available, it's accessible to those kids. So they've changed their policies and they no longer allow people to bring alcohol into their event. They've made a lot of other changes. We've introduced what was called an alcohol management plan. And the alcohol management plan was worked on with our Kern County Sheriff's Department. He was very active with it. So they do things like a wristband and stamp system for those that are legal to drink, no alcohol in the carnival area, clear plastic cups, 12 ounce. People couldn't just walk up with whatever they wanted to. We also have empowering our youth. We took them to CASC, California Association of Student Council. Took them to CASC, they came back to our community as leaders. They called themselves MyC3, or Mountain Youth Can Change Communities. One of the projects they did was a sticker shock campaign. So they placed these stickers on the outside of every door that had alcohol behind it, and every location up in the mountain communities. They also put stickers on the six-packs right before graduation as a reminder to people. They also developed their own MyC3 Youth Leadership Conference. They've done it for 2 years, and they now train using the CAS curriculum the 7th graders in our local area, wanting more leaders and to understand the dangers of alcohol and drugs. As a matter of fact, here's 3 members that attended that conference that now are part of MyC3, and they came to our Mikasa meeting and they did a presentation to us, teaching us about youth alcohol on the teen brain. I think that same presentation was given to the meth task force by our older kids. This is Sergeant Brown. He was with our coalition for many years, very dedicated. He actually received Officer of the Year right before he retired, which is a little bit over a year ago. And he also is standing next to a sign that says, "Report underage drinking." We have 11 of those signs throughout our community. And he was the one that said, "I want the words 'save lives' on that sign." We always look at data when we're doing our work. We want to make sure that it's working, what we're doing. So this is data taken from the California Healthy Kids Survey, and you can see in 2009 that students that said alcohol is very easy to get. Now you see why we know there's an issue here. You can see that we've made some progress, and we're really pleased about that, but it also shows that we still have a lot of work to do, removing risks. The Center for Disease Control has published many papers on how an overconcentration of off-sale outlets affects the community's health. The Planning Department's thorough report and recommendation is vital to the health and safety of our youth. The density ratios are set by state legislation because they too understand the negative effects of overconcentration of off-sale outlets in communities. They are not just arbitrary numbers, as stated by those wanting to increase the off-sale outlets. Sorry, wrong arrow. Okay, so thank you for your time today, and I'd like to end this with a presentation or with a video of the MyC3 vision statement that they developed themselves after their first year at CASC. Please cue the video.
Drug-free. Our community is rich with fun and healthy activities for young people. Adults are aware of the dangers of substance abuse.
They set positive examples
and help motivate kids to create a successful future.
We are working very hard to help them obtain that vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're open up the public hearing. Anybody wish to make a comment? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Kaplan. I represent or appear for the 64 community members who signed verified protests with ABC that were received by your staff and are part of your file. Those protests are signed under oath. The sincerity of those protestants is unquestionable. They are all community members. They all oppose this application. They oppose it because this area is already oversaturated with ABC licenses as a matter of fact, but also as a matter of law. The state has formulated a ratio, a mathematical determination as to when an area has too many licenses based upon a population license ratio. It's mathematical, it's precise, it's objective. It applies no matter who you are as an applicant, no matter where you're applying. It applies across the state of California. It's based on the legislative determination, based on studies, that too much alcohol causes community problems. Therefore, if there is an oversaturation of alcohol, it harms the community welfare. By denying this application to increase the number of alcohol outlets in this community, which is already oversaturated by law, you will be demonstrating your commitment to the welfare of this community and also a commitment to common sense over greed. Dollar General is literally surrounded, their location, by existing alcohol sale locations. It exceeds the number allowed. Dollar General is also proximate to residences, proximate to a church, proximate to a school, and route of travel of children to get to that school. I would say, I'm trying to phrase this in the most objective manner possible, but if one were to conjure a location that is less appropriate for alcohol than this one would have a hard time. This is exactly what state law intended to prohibit by requiring that communities not be oversaturated, by requiring that alcohol sales not be located adjacent to sensitive uses. The question then becomes, can Dollar General demonstrate that it satisfies the public necessity? Well, I don't conceive of an argument that it's necessary to sell alcohol. It's a right and not a privilege. Can they demonstrate it satisfies the public convenience? Dollar General is near Fraser Market, about 500 feet. They have the identical product mix. They have the identical square footage. Fraser Market already sells beer and wine. Dollar General offers nothing new to this community that's not already there, and there in abundance. There is nothing convenient that Dollar General offers other than perhaps the convenience of children being able to acquire alcohol on their way to school? Is it convenient for homeowners sitting in their backyard to watch Dollar General patrons consume alcohol outside the store or drive away in it? Is it convenient for church members on their way to worship, passing by Dollar General to buy a beer on their way to church? There's no public convenience, and there certainly is no necessity. Too much alcohol harms the community, we know that. Dollar General, by its own admission, without alcohol, hardly suffers at all. It's an afterthought anyway. They built this store. They've said in their application forms that it's a secondary source. Dollar General without alcohol is still Dollar General, and their store goes on. The community with more alcohol is harmed. The balance of these interests would seem clear. If you were to grant this application, where does it stop? There already are 2 more licenses than state law allows in that area. This would make 3 more if it were to be granted, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then the exception swallows the rule. The rule is to prohibit proliferation for good reasons, and if this is granted, it makes a mockery of that rule. As to the argument that they are offering conditions, it's an illusion, because fortunately or unfortunately, you don't have the power to impose conditions on an ABC license. That's left to ABC. They do or they don't, they can or they can't. So if you were to grant this, it's a hope and a prayer that ABC might condition it. They might not condition it at all. But I go back to the original premise, which is this is contrary to state law because there are too many licenses there already. In order for Dollar General to somehow escape from that prohibition, they have to demonstrate that they satisfy public convenience. There's nothing convenient about it, and there's nothing necessary about it. That community has enough. 64 people have signed on a oath saying they've had enough and they don't want any more. And I would urge you to consider the welfare of the community and the wishes of your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
I have to bring this down because I'm short. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Walter. I'm a resident of Fraser Park for the last 20 years. I raised my son from 4 to 24. Since he was 8, I raised him as a single mom. I have been involved with youth organizations ever since he was 4. I have some concerns regarding the Dollar General opening up or transferring their liquor license. One thing Ann touched on was the SEBRA grant, which was a community-based mental risk reduction grant that Mental Health actually created for 3 rural communities. And those 3 rural communities are Fraser Park, Arvin, and Button Willow, which 2 of those are in Supervisor Couch's district, and one of them is in Letitia Priz's district, which is Arvin. And hopefully, I've heard in 2016, or not hopefully, but in 2016, they are adding 3 more, which are Oildale, Delano, and Kern River Valley, which are in McLeason's district. So as Mikasa has made some changes, this grant actually trains us, coalitions, about the risk of access and availability through outlet density. Approval of this alcohol license over the 1 or possibly 2 that was mentioned, and the 5 on-sale outlets we're already over could counteract the very purpose of that grant. And I really want to touch bases too on the, I was looking at the license types, and actually within 500 feet are, let's see, 3 other license types, type 41 and 47. And if you look in the ABC license types and their basic privileges, type 41, which there's 2 of within 500 feet, and type 47, which there's 1 within 500 feet, both of them allow off-sale. They can take the alcohol off, not just on. So I don't know if you guys knew that or not. So that really poses another question, that there's more off sales and, then more off-sale sites that were over than were stated, because those licenses offer on and off sale. So I don't know if you guys knew that. But also, Mikasa in their work with the CBER grant, actually we were invited to speak at the National Leadership Forum for CADCA, which means Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, last winter in Washington, D.C., about the work with an alcohol management plan at a local community event, serving alcohol. We were also just chosen this month as one of 2 national models in that same work. Our coalition's member, as you saw, Sergeant Brown, he worked with our coalition for the 6 years, and that whole time he worked with the president of Mountain Memories over that 6-year term, and we presented our work to the block grant directors on the policy and practices of the alcohol management plan on the Washington level. So the little CBER grant, not to even mention the drug-free community grant that we have, but the little $5,000 CBER grant that we started in 2006 has not only made an impact in our own community, and yeah, maybe it's not retail sales stores, but we also have made a difference there. But being a model in the alcohol management plan, it proves that these evidence-based strategies do work, and just using the model of the alcohol management plan with a community event, changing the kind of the rules and the policies that they have there, they don't have any fights anymore. It's just a great community event where more people are attending. So these changes and these policies and rules and regulations that not only coalitions have, but the planning department, ABC, all these rules and regulations are not arbitrary, they're not random, they are proven, and they do listen to the people who have proven them. And I don't know if you got this morning, I sent over, it's called a Strategy 55. It's a workbook on outlet density concerns in communities, and kind of how to teach you, how to look at that and how important it is from a public safety view. I highlighted a bunch of stuff in there, and CADCA is the one who wrote it with a lot of really good other organizations that also added to that. So as you make this decision for our community, you will ultimately leave the people who live in Fraser Park to deal with the consequences of the decision made today that may take years to happen. And as hopefully you all know, community level changes can take 5 to 10 years, which we kind of showed on the alcohol management plan with working with Fiesta Days. We started in 2006, and today they took off on their own, and they're doing all these great things on their own that prevent any kind of alcohol public safety issues. So community levels, like I said, they take 5 to 10 years, and we're already facing budget cuts in the public safety, as you guys know. I know you guys have a hard time, trying to juggle that. I just want to ask you, is adding more alcohol in a smaller community, is that going to help even that? Because it's not just this, it's not just youth, it's adults too. Because youth become adults, and adults are models for youth. There's a lot of drinking going on that aren't younger kids, but we're in the business of prevention. Prevention saves mental health money. Intervention costs, the county money. So it's really important now to make a decision of what can happen in the future, because I guarantee you, with these other coalitions coming up and starting, this issue is going to come across your desk again, and you guys are going to set a precedence of, what's going to happen in the future. And it's always better to, decide on the side of safety than the side of, well, what if? So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Walter. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Buma, spelled B-U-M-A, and I live in the Mountain Communities. For over 31 years, I've been an ordained Lutheran pastor. I am working now as a marriage family therapist in private practice, specializing in trauma. In addition, I've been a member of MCASA for 9 years. Today, as I stand before you, I stand as an independent, concerned community member to express my opposition to the Dollar General store to being licensed to sell alcohol. Please know that I am not opposed to the consumption of alcohol by adults. I am opposed to adding one more outlet for the selling of alcohol in a small community already saturated, as you've heard, with alcohol sales. The Mountain Communities has a serious problem with alcohol abuse, noted not only in my practice, but by the number of 12-step programs that are available in our community. Shortly before following my son's graduation from high school, my husband and I discovered that one of his friends, who was 21 years old, was supplying alcohol for underage kids in our area, including our son. Our son was from what one would call a good home, good family, attentive parents, a mother, a pastor and social worker, a father, a teacher of physics at a local high school. And I am convinced that without the influence of alcohol, our son and his friends would not have committed the crime that landed them in jail for a significant amount of time. As you've heard from others, our community is saturated with places where alcohol is served or can be bought. We have a significant problem with alcohol abuse, both by youth and adults. Do we really need another store, another outlet for alcohol in our community? I would say no. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Beal.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Nelson. I seem to be in the minority here.
I'm sorry, sir, can you repeat your last name?
Brian Nelson.
Nelson, thank you.
What's going on in the neighborhood is that every off-sale place there is owned by one group or partnership or of somewhat. Within 12 miles, every off-sale is owned by that same group, and they've even currently acquired the grocery store. There is no competition on the Hill to buy alcohol. They're just providing an outlet. They could at least keep the price down. They also are not only complying with all the rules and regulations, they seem to go out of their way to not advertise that they have alcohol. They're not selling single alcoholic beverages. And I'd just like to point out that somebody's got a monopoly going, and they're really dead set against these guys coming up there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
My name is Samantha Antcliffe, Antcliffe, and I'm opposed to Dollar General being granted an alcoholic beverage license at 3521 Mount Piñas Way in Fraser Park for the following reasons. One, which has already been stated, that Fraser Park already has a maximum number of allotted alcoholic beverage licenses, and it is well documented that when there are an excessive number of businesses selling alcohol in small communities, there's increase in street crime in the form of loitering, littering, and fights. Dollar General has cheap prices on their beer, which will encourage excessive alcohol consumption. Dollar General has been caught selling alcohol to minors at the following stores. And it's important to note that this is just a sampling of cases: store number 914, 943, 2592, 7321, 7857, and 14728. Most recently was on April 22nd, 2016 in Fort Payne, Alabama. And however, despite the above incidents of Dollar General's illegal sales to minors, the following is a statement from Dollar General. Its employees are thoroughly trained and abide by the law, and the company is committed to selling alcohol in a safe and responsible manner. Dollar General states that they are setting a higher standard by not advertising beer and wine in their storefronts. However, they do advertise their weekly ads online. Children ages 8 to 18 now spend an average of about 11 hours with 7 days a week with media. This translates into 75 hours per week. Of those media hours, the internet now takes up half the time. The location of the Dollar General store is situated on the major route for school buses picking and dropping off children attending Fraser Park Elementary School, El Cajon Middle School, and Fraser Park High School. I'm concerned about the safety and mothers and their children who walk to and from Fraser Park Elementary School, and the fact that they will be exposed to the inevitable negative effects that result from instances of public intoxication that are associated with discount alcohol sales outlets. As I previously mentioned, Dollar General has an extensive history of selling alcohol to minors. Dollar General has been engaging in criminal activities involving the illegal alcohol sales to minors as put forth in statement number 3. I'm concerned for the well-being of the youth of Fraser Park. They will be exposed to Dollar General's illicit and undesirable business practices. For example, in the Wings Dance Studio, which caters to young children, is located directly across the street from the Dollar General store. Reflection 47, A River Church, is situated diagonally across from the Dollar General store. There's a congregation of children, teenagers, and adults worshiping on Sunday mornings, and if Dollar General is granted an alcoholic beverage license, there's potential problem with Dollar General engaging in criminal activities, which goes against everything that is taught in a place of worship. Fraser Park already has a problem with alcohol abuse, and in my opinion, by granting Dollar General a license to sell alcohol, it will only exacerbate the situation. We have an active Alcoholics Anonymous group with meetings held Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and Sunday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the Healthy Start meeting room. As a homeowner and concerned resident of this small mountain community, I hope that my concerns will be considered, and as a result, Dollar General's application for the alcoholic beverage license will be denied. Thank you so much for your time and consideration in this matter.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ann?
Ann Berna, B-R-N-A-U-G-H. I'm just going to say one last thing, is that actually we're very happy that Dollar General is in our town. They actually have probably over 1,000 things that we have never had access to, which is why the parking lot is always full. Their business is doing really well. My understanding is like 1,000 people were there the first day. We were told at the community meeting, I wasn't there, I'm taking the word of several people that were there, that they can't keep the shelves full. They have to restock them all the time. That means they're doing well without the alcohol. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comment and consideration. Mr. Couch.
Does either county council or planning department, Ms. Oviatt, do you need to respond to anything that you heard? For example, one sticks out in my head that this is illegal. I think it's one thing Mr. Kaplan said. So begs the question, why are we even having this hearing if this is illegal?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, I was just going to comment that you might want to have Mr. Brewer respond to the allegations that Dollar General is engaging in underage, sales. We had looked at the list that had been provided to us of these citations, and they were all outside of California. So that is our response. We remind your board that the Sheriff's Department does participate with ABC and does, what's the word, anonymous. They send people in to try and buy alcohol, and so there is an entire violation there. I would defer to counsel in regards to responding to Mr. Kaplan. Certainly, your board is authorized by the state to review the site-specific characteristics and to make your determination on public convenience or necessity. That is within your purview to make that determination. I believe that what Mr. Kaplan is trying to make the case for is that you can't make that case. However, that is within your decision-making authority, and I defer to Ms. Goldner.
Thank you. Supervisor Couch, members of the board, I do have some comments related to the legal issues. Because this is a contested hearing, I wanted you to have a little primer on what the law is related to it. I think it would help you a lot. Article 22, Section 22 of the California Constitution grants to the Department of Alcohol, Beverage, and Control exclusive power to license the sale of alcoholic beverages, quote, in accordance with the laws enacted by the legislature. In those cases where issuance of a license would result in an undue concentration of licenses in a particular area, the ABC may not issue a license unless the local government entity makes a finding within 90 days of notification of a completed application that the issuance of the license would serve, quote, public convenience or necessity. And that's what this hearing is about. That phrase, public convenience or necessity, however, wouldn't you know, it is not defined by statute. That is something for your board to decide based upon the facts that are presented to you in the testimony and the documents today. If the local entity does not make that determination, then it falls to the ABC to make the determination. And that's found in Business and Professions Code section 23958.4. There's also a case on point called Nick versus Department of ABC. For those who would like to look at the site, it's a 2014 case. The site is 233 Cal. 4th 194 at pages 206 and 207. So that's the current state of the law. It also provides that the local entity, your board, is afforded broad discretion to make the decision, and that includes the discretion to determine the relevant factors on a case-by-case basis, whether the issuance of the license would serve public convenience or necessity. Appellate review of your decision would look to see whether or not your decision was, 1, arbitrary, which means not based on the facts, 2, or relied on factors that were not supported by substantial evidence. If the decision is supported by substantial evidence, then the determination of what actually constitutes a public convenience or necessity will not be disturbed on appeal by the courts. Some of the factors that are mentioned in the cases that define, that address these sorts of issues include, 1, the new location is different than other locations that currently have licenses and appeals to a different segment of the populace. That's something you can consider. 2, whether it's consistent with the zoning. 3, whether the business provides a wide variety of other items for sale. 4, the store location and design. 5, development of crime deterrent programs or program by the applicant. 6, the applicant's experience. 7, whether law enforcement supports the issuance. 8, whether the seller offers other products at a discount. And if the local entity, your board, determines that public convenience or necessity are not served by the issuance of the license, then the ABC does not issue the license. So your board is given the discretion, and it's very broad discretion, to decide if there is public convenience or necessity that would be served by the issuance of the license. And that is fact-based, based on the evidence that your board considers. And I hope that makes your job easier and not more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say to the folks from My C3, you all ought to be very proud. I mean, you took a $5,000 grant and you turned it into something pretty special, pretty unique, and you've tackled a problem in your community. Your community tackled a problem in your community, and you have made great strides. And so I applaud you for that. You should be proud of that. You should be really proud of your kids that are involved in that. And I know that you are, but you probably don't get told that often enough. There is absolutely no way to make both of the folks that spoke here today and Dollar General happy. It's hard to split the baby on this. It's impossible to split the baby on this. In weighing all the factors, and let me first say, for the benefit of the board, I don't know the Fraser Park community as well as the people that are sitting in front of us today. But I get to the Fraser Park community a lot more often than people think I do. I go up there for a wide variety of reasons, and I meet with sometimes groups and sometimes individuals, but we always try to stop into different businesses and locations and just take a look around and get to know people. So I am very familiar with where this location is. And with all due respect to Mr. Kaplan, I remember walking to and from school when I was in elementary school, junior high, and I can name you the places that I walked past that I just never went in. And probably because my parents had told me to never go in there, one reason. But it never occurred to me to go in there. And I want to, I want to say that I appreciate Dollar General's willingness to, number one, go into the community for the public meeting you had the other day and hear the concerns and answer them and make the proposal that you made. It is my humble opinion, and it is humble because you could always be wrong, that we ought to grant Dollar General the ability or the off-sale beer and wine license. And I want to, because I don't believe with the conditions, if the ABC will impose them, which I recognize is a bit of an if, I don't believe that the Dollar General sales of beer and wine through that license in the manner they're going to do it is anything remotely close to what is being done at the other 4 locations, 2 of which are apparently a couple miles away. I think what they are proposing is a much more responsible plan or management plan or method of dispensing alcohol if you're going to do that. And I know there were issues brought up about proximity to a church and to a school. In my view, it's a hike to the school. And I know, and I also want to, for the board and for the members of the public, I appreciate the fact that you all feel the way you do and the fact that you spoke today. It's not easy to do. I have also heard from multiple people that didn't want to speak today because they don't want to be on the other side of this issue because, frankly, they don't want to be defending the use of alcohol, but they do believe that it would be a convenience. It would be a nice thing to be able to pick up while they're in the store. And some of them live very, very close, if not adjacent to the store. But I've heard from a wide variety of people, and I don't think they have any intent of being opposed to your group. In fact, I think they would like to be helpful to your group. So I would like to make a motion that would allow Dollar General to move forward with this license. But I know that we need to make findings in order to do that. So how do I move forward with that?
Supervisor Couch, the chair, if you would just give me one moment, and if there are other comments that you wanted to add, I can craft something that could be read into the record. Could I ask for a clarification? Are you asking that the conditions that the applicant has suggested also be forwarded
Yes.
up?
Yes, and any others that you feel would be
Okay.
appropriate.
And, I do need to let your board know, as well as county council, that the applicant has signed an indemnification agreement on this matter, and I have that in the file. So if you just give me one moment, and if there's any, Chairman Gleason, if there's any other comments from board members that might help me craft findings, I don't know if there's anyone else who would like to weigh in.
I believe Supervisor
I'm
Maggard
gonna-
would like to speak as well.
Start writing.
Supervisor Maggard. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I used to work in the grocery business when I was a young man. Actually, it's the job that best prepared me for this. I was a box boy in a grocery store. I could talk to a dead guy. There was nobody I could make up a conversation with, because you are in a grocery store, you meet every person from every walk of life. And it was a very, very useful thing to be able. I still employ it all the time in my work here as a county supervisor. There's something you know when you work in a grocery store. You know who your community drunk is. You know who your community alcoholic is. There's a difference in that. And the policies that Dollar General has in place are policies that are, I know this because of my work in this industry a long time ago. Those are specific to try to curtail specific behaviors of customers who come and buy one beer, one tall beer, one bottle of whatever, so they can break it apart and drink it on the way back, either to the car or as they duck around the corner going back to their house. So if you're going to have alcohol served in your neighborhood, I don't think there's a better set of policies than Dollar General are going to employ, because they're national policies that are, now are there mistakes made? Yes, and they should be held accountable for the mistakes, and if they are negligent, then there are consequences to that that should cost them whatever the cost is. But I don't know anything about the overconcentration in your neighborhood. I don't know anything about those things, but I'm trying to suggest to you that there may be a positive, because I admire very much the work that you're doing. I don't drink. I don't advocate that people should drink. I'm aware of the consequences of that in my extended family, and I don't want it to be a part of my family. But if there can be a positive, if this passes, as the supervisor for your district is going to make a motion that it should, I urge you to attempt to make a positive out of what you might see initially as a negative, and that is go to the other vendors in your community and ask them to meet the same standards that Dollar General does and the way that they vend that alcohol, that product. Because what will save your kids, I suspect, is that, for example, I have a vendor in my, one vendor in my district who wanted to sell basically cocktails in a can. And it is some people that are vending alcohol irresponsibly do endanger their community. So, but for what it's worth, if you're going to have it vended in your community, I think having a national standard is the way that it ought to be done. And I too applaud you for the effort you're doing to help those kids up there on the mountain.
Thank you, Supervisor Maggard. I have something to say. I'm going to go the other side. I'm going to go in the other direction on this one. And the reason is, first of all, I want to say that I applaud Dollar General up and down for your contributions to Kern County. It is significant in my district. What you've done up in Kern River Valley, the 2 stores up there in the Ridgecrest area, you're pretty much going around and doing, bringing business, a good, solid business, hiring good employees. You have a clean storefront. There's everything positive I can say about Dollar General. I, as one of my collateral assignments, am also the chairman of the Kern Stop Meth Now program, and I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of drugs in our community, and I do know that what I've seen previously is this group has had a significant impact, a positive impact in their community, and I've come to respect and admire the work they do, and I intend to support it. So, anyone else? Thoughts? So we have a motion. I think we have a motion. We don't have a motion. We're waiting for a motion. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you very much. I am so impressed with the group of folks that have come before us for taking your time and resources, of which I'm sure you have expended quite a bit on your own in order to be aggressive and assertive about something that is quite perilous, not just for young people, but for all kinds of folks. And so, this is a tough issue for me because I like to support our supervisor and the wishes of his district, but I have consistently said no to these operations when they have been presented in my district under the same circumstances, where they are close to children, close to sensitive spots, vulnerable people, and when there is already an oversaturation. I have consistently said no, and I think it makes sense and is fair that I remain consistent in that position because it is what I believe to be important and honest about the needs of communities and the also importance of supporting groups like yourself that are on the front lines doing such great work. So of no disrespect to my very, very respected colleague supervisor, I'm not comfortable supporting this request. So that's my position. Thank you.
Chairman Gleason, I ask your indulgence as I read this into the record for the motion. So the basis for the recommended findings. So the motion would actually be to make the recommended findings. These findings are the basis for approval. 1, the request for a type 20 beer and wine license at this location is consistent with the type and wide variety of products offered at other such retail stores. 2, the retail store with the potential to sell beer and wine is a permitted use within the C2 General Commercial Zone District. 3, existing liquor license holders already operate within the community closer than 1,000 feet to the nearest school site and within close proximity of residences. As such, approval of the request will not be an incompatible land use or set a precedence based on proximity to existing sensitive land uses. 4, approval of the request with the suggested applicant conditions attached and read into the record to be transmitted to Alcohol and Beverage Control will provide limitations and restrictions to further ensure that customers who are underage will not be allowed to buy alcohol, and nuisance issues such as noise, after-dark loitering, and attraction of vandalism and graffiti will be contained and effectively managed by the store owner. 5, this board is able to make a determination of public convenience and necessity at this location as the retail store is within a community which does not currently have a convenient location to buy the type of products offered by this retailer and will reduce the amount of traveling long distances to provide for the need of off-sale alcohol availability within Census Tract 33.05. I'm now going to, and attached to that would be the proposed alcohol beverage license conditions of approval. With your indulgence. 1, sales and service of alcohol beverages shall be permitted only between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. each day of the week. 2, wine in bottles or containers smaller than 750 milliliters cannot be sold by single container, but must be sold in manufacturer prepackaged multi-unit quantities. 3, beer and malt beverages, regardless of container size, cannot be sold by single containers, but must be sold in manufacturer prepackaged multi-unit quantities. 4, there shall be no exterior advertising or sign of any kind or type, including advertising directed to the exterior from within, promoting or indication the availability of alcoholic beverages. Interior displays of alcoholic beverages or signs which are clearly visible to the exterior shall constitute a violation of this condition. 5, the petitioner shall post and maintain a professional quality sign facing the premises parking lots that reads as following. In capital letters, no loitering, no littering, no drinking of alcoholic beverages. Violators are subject to arrest. The sign shall be at least 2 feet square with 2-inch block lettering. The sign shall be in English and Spanish. 6, the parking lot of the premises shall be equipped with lighting of sufficient power to illuminate and make easily discernible the appearance and conduct of all persons on or about the parking lot. Additionally, the position of such lighting shall not disturb the normal privacy and use of any neighboring residences. 7, the petitioners shall be responsible for maintaining a free from litter area adjacent to the premises over which they have control as depicted on the ABC 257 dated 2/29/16 and ABC 253 dated 2/29/16. 8, any graffiti painted or marked upon the premises or on any adjacent area under the control of the licensees shall be removed or painted over within 72 hours of being applied. 9, loitering is prohibited on or around these premises or this area under the control of the licensee as depicted on ABC 257 dated 2/29/16 and ABC 253 dated 2/29/16. And 10, no alcoholic beverages shall be consumed on any property adjacent to the licensed premises under the control of the licensee as depicted on the ABC 257 dated 2/29/16 and ABC 253 dated 2/29/16. The motion is to make these recommended findings, adopt resolutions approving the request.
Thank you, Mr. Couch.
Do I need to say so moved to that? Okay, so moved. Thank you.
We have a motion.
I'll second the motion so we can have a vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Before we vote, I want to go ahead and, I'm going to vote in favor of this motion. And basically, it comes down to, I think that the standard that Dollar General is setting as far as how they're handling the alcohol sales, or rather how they propose to handle the alcohol sales, should be a standard that is applauded. There are other businesses in the Fraser Park area, and believe it or not, I'm quite familiar with the Fraser Park area, maybe not as familiar as Supervisor Couch is. It's been a while since I've been up there, but I know a lot about the community. I know the various mini marts, et cetera, that are up there, and I think Dollar General, based on what I've seen in my own communities throughout Eastern Kern, in addition to Bakersfield, is a store that does set a high standard, and so I'm going to support the motion because I think that those types of businesses that do set the bar high should be applauded, and I think that the conditions that they've agreed to are going to go a long way in controlling alcohol sales and making sure that minors don't end up being able to purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Scrivener. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 3 ayes, 2 opposed, Supervisor Gleason, Supervisor Perez.
Brings us to item number 11 on the County Administrative Office, report on authorized positions and proposed strategies related to restricted hiring.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon. I'll wait a second to let the people leave.
Mr. Nyland, go ahead.
Very good, thank you. And good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On July 19th, 2016, during the fiscal year 16-17 second budget discussion, your board expressed concerns regarding the number of vacant, funded, and unfunded positions included in the budget across departments, and request strategies to immediately reduce the number of authorized unfilled positions, implement a hiring freeze, and other options to mitigate the loss of property tax revenue resulting from the decline in oil and gas. The vacancy issue involves a number of considerations, contributing factors, and circumstances, all of which vary from one department to the next. As background, the county ordinance requires your board, and as the county ordinance requires your board, establishes by resolution the number and type of positions for each county department. Your board's authority derives from the California Constitution, which empowers county boards of supervisors to set the number of positions, compensation, tenure, and appointment of employees, and that applies to all county departments. With regard to implementing a hiring freeze, the County General Fund and Fire Fund have a 4-year deficit mitigation plan, and it requires the downsizing of operations. A hiring freeze could potentially prepare the county for expected reductions in the upcoming fiscal years as well. This process will allow departments to consolidate duties and potentially restructure. If a hiring freeze is implemented, the following should be considered. Be comprehensive and apply to vacant, temporary, and full and part-time positions. Prohibit departments from hiring outside contractors to compensate for the hiring freeze, converting part-time positions into full-time positions, or using excessive overtime or comp time between departments. Be in effect until the department is able to demonstrate that it can sustain operations at the reduced level without the use of one-time sources such as budget salary savings. Savings generated from the hiring freeze in one department cannot be shifted to enable another department to hire employees because the overall county deficit would still not change. Immediate savings achieved should be in a designation to be released in the subsequent year to mitigate any deficits. Should be applied to all general fund departments and those departments that receive a net general fund cost allocation, and should take into consideration each position's net county cost. Exceptions to the hiring freeze should be very limited, only positions that are critical to public safety, revenue collection, and other core functions, and only in cases where these essential duties cannot be carried out at current staffing levels. The hiring freeze must take into consideration and encourage innovative use of funds. For example, community development block grant funds may be used to provide public services such as staffing for public safety if the area served qualifies under the HUD requirements. Another example of funding that could be further reviewed to ensure its best use when hiring staff is the county's allocation of state public safety realignment money under AB 109. Although this board's discretion over AB 109 for public protection is limited, your board still has the authority to approve or reject the spending plan submitted by the Community Corrections Partnership each year for approval. Our recommendations, and so based on careful consideration of the information provided in this report, the County Administrative Office recommends the following. The county administrative policy and procedures should be modified to require that positions unfunded and vacant for more than 12 months be deleted. The county administrative policy and procedures manual should also be modified to require that positions funded and vacant for more than 24 months be deleted, that military leave positions would be exempt from the above process, and to ensure that a hiring freeze does not become merely a slowdown in hiring or an administrative hurdle for departments to gain approval to hire, the criteria to determine what positions are mission critical should be clearly defined through coordination with the department to ensure that each department's mandated functions and operational needs are evaluated. To ensure that hiring of the most critical positions is not delayed, the County Administrative Office recommends that the authority to hire be delegated to the County Administrative Officer with monthly reporting of every position authorized in the previous month. Finally, the County Administrative Office will bring back action steps to implement your board's direction at a regular meeting of the board after the budget hearings on August 23rd. Therefore, it is recommended that your board receive and file this report and provide direction. We are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Nowlan. Let's open up to the public for comments.
Hello, Chairman Gleason, members of the board, T.R. Miracle, your Chief Probation Officer. I just wanted to make a couple comments. Our department's been popped up a couple times. I usually try to keep my head down, but apparently I'm getting a little more popular. So I just wanted to address some things. And first of all, just talk about, we all acknowledge these are very difficult times and we need to look at different approaches. And I certainly appreciate the board and the CAO's office doing that, and I've been doing that as well. I became chief in 2014. One of the first things I did was ask myself how we could be more innovative and efficient during these troubled times financially. And that means not only managing our budget, but also providing better services. I think we can do both. And I know I'm not the only department to do that. Departments across the whole county have been doing that. But just real quick, give you a couple things that I've done. We've closed high-risk juvenile detention beds. We've renegotiated contracts in our benefit. We've done a series of add and deletes, always trying to save money and also give you new positions that will make us more efficient and relevant to the work we do. We've unfunded positions. We've modified our staffing practices in our institutions to lower our overtime and extra help costs, and we've sought new revenue sources. I just want to talk a little bit about why departments have vacancies, and my department specifically. I think Mr. Nylon did an excellent job in the first part of his memorandum that he submitted explaining some of those. So I'll just go over those and add a couple more. The first is there's a built-in 2% vacancy in our every budget. And the easiest way to explain that, if I could wave a magic wand and fill all of my budgeted positions, I would be 1.5 million over budget. So by definition, I'm going to have sometimes a certain level of vacancies. In addition, even if the budget, although we're getting decreases, even if it was level, it would still be like a cut because the price of an employee goes up on merit pay and other things, so we have to account for that. There's just a natural attrition. The sheriff this morning talked about how his department has that attrition rate and trying to fill positions. He's not alone in that issue. Another issue is there's a long process to hire staff. If I have a law enforcement staff that has no list, and from the moment we ask for a list to the moment they pass our extensive background, it can be 6 to 9 months. And I will note that county HR has done a lot to improve that, but it's still a very long process. One issue that came up is regarding overtime and extra help, and my department was mentioned in that. So first of all, I'd just like to say we have 3 institutions in our county that we have to staff 24 hours a day. We're under Title 15 mandates, so we have to have a certain level of ratio of staff members to minors in those institutions. And while it is true that traditionally the probation department has held a large number of juvenile correction officers vacant, and our staffing costs for extra help costs were larger than budgeted, I made a concerted effort when I became chief to change that practice. In 2015, the county hired 41 juvenile correction officers, where we filled up almost every single one of our juvenile correction officer position. Currently, we have 12, again, because of attrition rates and other matters. One of our biggest attrition rates is to ourselves. When we hire deputy probation officers, the vast majority of those come from our juvenile correction officers. So when we fill one vacancy, we create another. No matter what, I'm going to have to use some level of extra help because of those Title 15 mandates. The only way I'd get around that is if I got more permanent positions, which I certainly think the board is not in the position to do. Another reason we might hold vacancies is because of our revenue sources. My department is 39% general funded. The other revenue sources come from various state, federal, and grants. And so I think at times it's prudent when you have budgeted a revenue source and you're not certain that it's going to come in at that amount. I think if I was a taxpayer, and I am, I would want a department to make sure that that revenue source is coming in as you budgeted prior to moving forward. Another reason you might is for a strategic reason hold some vacancies, and that's to do an add and delete. In order to do an add and delete like I've done numerous times, which saves money, you can't have a body in that position. So in the budget next week, I have several add and deletes where I'm going to delete positions, add less at a cost savings. But obviously I have to hold that vacant until that can happen. Another reason that you might do is because you have an existing list to hire people, but you're towards the end of that list and you're not satisfied with the level of candidates that you're getting. So you might strategically say, although I have a list, I'm going to wait for that list to expire so I can get a new list, which would have a new candidate pool. And again, I think the public would want that because you want the best candidates that we can get. My concerns with the proposal are a retroactive application. I can tell you that if these rules had been in effect, I probably would have made different decisions the past year in managing my department. Also, I'm curious about how it will work exactly like long-term positions if you look and say, well, you've had this type of position vacant for so long, so you don't need it. An example of this would be in our OST classification, which is our entry-level clerical. We currently have 10 vacancies in that position, but we're constantly trying to fill it. It's incredibly difficult to fill that position because either people fail out of the probationary period, they quit, they transfer to other departments, or they get promoted out of it. But if those were taken away because I've had a vacancy there, all that's going to happen is it's going to push that line down to where I don't have those, I'll have a new one, I'm going to have the exact same problem with retention, and I'll create a new gap. On the information that was provided to you, the probation department shows 50 funded vacant positions. Just like to break that down a little bit. 6 of those positions are being held vacant because they're part of the add and delete proposal that goes before you next week as part of our budget. 6 additional ones are vacant because they're going to be unfunded as part of our additionally unfunded positions as part of our budget. So that's 12 out of those 50 positions that are vacant, but for a specific reason relating to the budget. So that leaves 38 vacant positions. We have currently, I'm authorized for approximately 613 positions. So that is about a 6% vacancy rate. And I would have hired more during these last several months, but obviously with all the uncertainty, again, I thought it was most prudent to wait to see how it all goes. In my experience as a department head running a budget, it's really a balancing act. There's numerous and constantly changing variables that you have to account for. And as a department head, I feel I need to be flexible and nimble to be able to address those changing situations. So I can respond to the needs of my department, changes in the law, or instituting the latest and best practices in my field. I hope my explanation gives you a little bit of insight into the thoughts and challenges that I face as a department head, and I certainly want to say I will continue to work together with your board and the CAO's office to get through this difficult time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had them.
Thank you, Tia. We may have some for you, so if you just sit down right there, it'd be great. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Craig Pope, Public Works Director. I appreciate your efforts in trying to find tools to help us manage our budget. That's what we're here to do. CAO has come up with a practical application of trying to save money. That's half the equation. We have to also try and get our job done. For example, our department, we've had 4 people give resignations since Friday. If we had a hiring freeze and all of a sudden we can't make a movement on that, some of those are critical positions that we can't fill. That just won't work. I mean, if you want us to keep doing our job, we're going to have some flexibility, either some way of coming to before your board or something like that to get positions that we need to fill. I appreciate the CAO and their application trying to save money. We have to. We're upon very hard times, and I think next year this time will even be harder than we are currently. So we have to do something, but we have to have, if you want us to be efficient, I think the gentleman before me said it all. I can say ditto. If you want us to be efficient and move fast to try and get things done, there has to be a little bit of flexibility. I think the thing that would cause us the greatest amount of grief is deleting funded vacancies. That is a tool that we use, just as he said, to take care of the issues that come up that we don't plan on. Our work that we do, you can't plan. You don't know when the storm's going to hit. You don't know what road's going to pop. We have to have some flexibility in what we do just to take care of the unknowns. And we have a lot of those in the business we are in. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Pope, do you have, I'll take you up on that question, piece. Is your hiring process 6 to 9 months also?
No, it's probably not. The new HR department is much faster now. It depends on whether it's already a list made. Sometimes it's less than a week. It's really good.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Couch, members of the board. Bill Walker, your mental health and substance abuse department head. I was thinking when I was sitting here listening to this, I was thinking of KMC, and I was thinking of the work, I guess they're Kern Medical now, but it was KMC then, and the work this board did navigating what could have continued to be such a huge problem. And so I want to start off respectfully saying that I appreciate that you're not just people up there with lights on you trying to make quick decisions, but you really consider all the facts and how things should be approached. I wanted to make 5 points to you today. And probably this is as much for the public as for you, because I think you know most of what I'm going to share with you. The first is to separate the difference between a general fund and a non-general fund department. And the mental health department receives virtually all of its money from state and federal dollars, and that is not the same as a general fund account. And so I wish all the other departments right now were in our shoes, though I don't wish they were in our shoes in '09 when our budget at the state level was drastically cut. Also, I'd like to point out that in the document that John Nylon presented to you, there's a bullet that I'll read that says, if a hiring freeze is implemented, the following should apply. And the last or second to last bullet states, be applied to all general fund departments and those departments that receive a net general fund cost allocation. The mental health department only receives a maintenance of effort, which is less than $1 million of our over $150 million budget, and it's statute required. The second point I wanted to make is that most of the funds we receive are categorical allocations. The realignment dollars, the Mental Health Service Act or MHSA dollars, these dollars make up about 2/3 of our budget, and they are allocated to us by a formula. If we don't spend these dollars, they either sit or they revert, meaning they go back to the state. The mental health department has actually increased its budget by almost $40 million in 3 budget cycles by working with these different funding streams and bringing them into our county more successfully. That's $40 million of jobs, that's $40 million of services, that's $40 million across all of the districts. We're building a CSU in Ridgecrest, which by next year we'll be having to staff. So these services are moving forward in kind of an unprecedented way for us right now. The third point I wanted to make is that we also receive almost 1/3 of our funds from the services we provide. We build Medi-Cal, which bills both a federal portion and a state portion. So if we don't have the staff to actually build those services, we don't draw down those funds. And so the dance is, how many staff can you have to pull down the funds and to maximize those dollars and provide the services to the communities? The fourth point I really already made, which is our funds are increasing. They're not just increased at the moment, they're going to continue to increase, but the rules have changed for us in the State Department of Mental Health, is that they're removing some of our allocations and they're forcing us into competitive bid processes. The Ridgecrest CSU that's being built is being built because we won through a CHAFA grant those dollars to build that. The No Place Like Home, to build permanent supportive housing, we will have to compete for. So we will need to have staff that are excellent and experts at grant writing in some of these areas for us to move forward in these areas. So what I would ask is that you respectfully, as you go through the document that Mr. Nylon has presented, is you differentiate between the general fund and the non-general fund. You know that I believe wholeheartedly in accountability, believe in using the Lean Six or other. I have absolutely no problem being transparent in who we've hired, how we hire, how we fill positions. I also applaud the Human Resources Department and what they've done in making their improvements and working with us. We had civil service people come over and meet with us to look at how we work so they can better help us in keeping our positions filled. So my respectful request is that you differentiate between general fund and non-general fund in this decision-making process. Thank you. And I'll be available for questions too.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Scott Spillman. I'm the Assistant District Attorney. I want to share with you some observations concerning some of the suggestions in the report. As you know, Mrs. Green is out of the office today, so she asked me to make these points too. The report states that departments use vacant positions, extra help positions, and overtime as a means to meet their budgets while intentionally leaving funded positions vacant. We do not. We presently have no extra help employees, and we have not requested any in the present budget. We seldom allow overtime, and when we do, it's because of a specific reason, not to try to make up for work of vacant positions. When you look at our vacant positions over the last year, you can see that there are very few, and they're easily explained as being caused by the time it takes to hire a qualified candidate, whether those candidates pass an exhaustive background check and probation, the lengthy county hiring process, and because some of these positions are filled pending the decision the decision to reduce staff due to reduced funding in our present budget. Two other areas discussed in the report do cause great concern. The first is not allowing the hiring as positions become vacant. This may be because of a hiring freeze or because we cannot demonstrate an ability to meet the CAO's recommended future budgets. If the ultimate result is a further reduction in prosecutors in our office, then the cases we are unable to prosecute will increase. Mrs. Green already met with each of you individually to explain what we are doing and why we have to do it. With our reduced budget, we already have 3 less prosecutors in our misdemeanor unit than we had a year ago. As a result of that decision, we are not prosecuting the lowest level misdemeanors. If you don't allow us to fill positions as they become vacant, and factoring in our anticipated number of prosecutors leaving the office before the end of the year, let me make this clear. At the end of this calendar year, you will have eliminated the misdemeanor unit and will have worked your way into felony prosecutor positions being eliminated. The second area of the report causing great concern is in the determination of mission-critical positions. The report notes that positions that are critical to public safety should be exempted from a hiring freeze. The report then goes on to recommend, in quoting, the criteria to determine mission-critical positions should be established in coordination with the department to ensure that each department's mandated functions and operational needs are evaluated, end of the quote. Just as we must respect and follow your ultimate decision on the funding you choose to give our department, to the extent what is suggested in this report interferes with the constitutional authority of the elected DA, I would ask you to respect and follow the decisions Mrs. Green makes and how to organize the district attorney's office. As you would expect, she will make decisions that best provide safety for our community within the confines of the provided budget. And that was the purpose of meeting with you last week individually. Thank you for the time. If you have any questions, I am available.
Thanks, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, members of the board. Conrad Moore, Kern County Public Defender. I rarely have the opportunity to agree with the district attorney, so I thought I should be sure to seize this opportunity. Beginning with the vacant and unfunded positions and the proposal to delete them, I suppose that that's a measure of a cleanup, but I don't think that it has any budget implications because they're unfunded. Further, as relates to vacant and unfunded positions, I think that proposing deleting them could create, over the longer term, a perverse incentive where department heads acted more conservatively than they might otherwise to protect against their potential deletion. An example from our department is the chief investigator, which we have held open now for a number of years. We have done that to achieve and improve budget savings. As a consequence, I've been obliged to ask our chief public defender, the chief assistant, Dominic Arabidi, to oversee investigations. That's not the most efficient way to do it, but it has been deemed necessary as we've struggled to save money. With the hope and optimism that at some point the budget situation will improve, I would like to be able to realize that increased efficiency and allow Mr. Arabidi to focus more on legal affairs. So I think as it relates to vacant and unfunded positions, I don't believe that there's any budget advantage to deleting those. And I think, in fact, that it, again, could create some awkward or potentially disadvantageous incentives. As to the hiring freeze, I think it sounds good, but from a practical perspective, I submit it would introduce a level of inefficiency and a layer of bureaucracy that would not advance the county's collective mission. First, I'd like to compliment Mr. Nylon and his office and our budget analyst, Brent Curry, for helping us to maximize what I believe is efficient operations in the Public Defender's Office. We're already dealing or going to be grappling with the proposed 5% budget reduction. As it relates to our lawyers and staff, we don't have a deep bench. In fact, we don't have a bench. We operate on the fringes, and listening to the sheriff this morning talking about the vacancies that occur with regular frequency, and Mr. Pope, we grapple with those too. Last week, we received notices from 2 attorneys that are hired on in Los Angeles County Alternate Public Defender's Office, and so we have to move very quickly to fill those vacancies. And so I immediately got on the phone with Mr. Curry, explained the situation with him. They are in our highly impacted preliminary hearing unit. Said, Brent, what I'd like to do is seek to reach out to see if we can tab some extra help hires to bridge the period between our next hopeful permanent recruitment, and very fortunately, that authorization was turned around and we were able to work to identify and begin interviewing candidates to move. With lawyers, many times we don't have the benefit of hiring locally. We have to look from other cities, and so that there can be a turnaround time, even if we get that authorization on an expedited basis, to identify, bring these individuals in, and then work with them as they relocate from another community. I would also offer, just generally speaking, the hope that you do have confidence in the department heads that you employ to administer the day-to-day affairs of the county, and would hope that that confidence provides you with the assurance that they're not going to be spending profligate spenders or anything other than the stewards of the taxpayers' money that you have every right to believe that they are. So for those reasons, and because, to echo many of the comments that have come before, I think efficient operations would be impaired if you were to move forward and impose a hiring freeze. And I'm, of course, available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Good afternoon, Devin Brown, Employee Relations Officer in charge of the Human Resources Division of your board in this county. First, I want to thank the departments for the congratulatory and pats on the back for the work that we've done for them this last year. It's been a long challenge, but I want to assure you that it does not take 6 to 9 months to recruit a position anymore. That is a falsehood. If there's any length that goes beyond the recruitment period that reaches into that 6 to 9 month time range, it's because of background investigations that some of the positions require for law enforcement or for the district attorney's office, and those are the choices that they make, and sometimes they're necessary to engage in those lengthy background processes. But we've done a lot of good things, which you'll hear in a few minutes, hopefully, to expedite the process. One of the items that Mr. Nyland noted in his letter to your board was that we're more flexible before an approval is final with the county administrative office, or if it goes to your board, that we open a recruitment for those positions ahead of time. In the past, the Department of Personnel waited until the official approval was given, even though it was likely to be approved. So we get a jump start on those recruitments and help the department get those names faster. So I'd be happy to answer any more questions about the recruitment process. We are going to be talking about it in a few minutes under our item, but I just want to be clear with your board. We're trying our best to do as much as possible to serve the county and the departments of this county and get the best and the brightest in those seats. Thanks.
Thanks, Brown. You're just tired of getting thrown under the bus, right?
Mr. Brown's comment, I think, was related to mine, so I just want to clarify. If I wasn't clear, I was saying from the time we ask for a list till that person starts. And he's exactly right, that it is because of our extensive background list. So I didn't mean to any disparaging. If you took it, I apologize. But like I did say, that they have improved greatly, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Michael Turnipseed representing Kern Tax. I agree with what was said from the audience. Mission-critical positions must be protected, and flexibility is needed for those positions to make sure they are filled in an efficient manner. Yesterday, I was listening to the radio, and I heard Mr. Nylon come on and talked about a similar process we're going through in Riverside County. I don't know what that is, but maybe you can talk to your board about implementing that, if it's beneficial or not. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. But I think one thing that will be necessary is starting the day after you adopt the budget next week, you need to start on a budget plan for the next year. And I brought up the concept of zero-based budgeting back during the recession. It's a technique which complements and links to existing planning, budgeting, and review processes like performance audits. It identifies alternative and efficient methods of utilizing limited resources. It is a flexible management approach which provides a credible rationale for reallocating resources by focusing on a systematic review and justification of the funding and performance levels of all current programs. In short, it's an efficient allocation of resources that is based on current needs and benefits rather than history. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Turnipseed. Anybody else? Okay, thanks. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comments and consideration.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I really appreciate our department heads coming forward and expressing some concerns that they have. Some of the things that that they talked about, I think, were acknowledged in the staff report. But I think, first off, I'd like to give Mr. Nylon an opportunity to respond to any of that, and then we can figure out how we want to move forward.
Supervisor Scrivener, through the chair, wanted to thank the department heads. It's amazing how much nicer they are to me when it's a week before budget hearings, and I appreciate that. And I do want to comment. I want to comment on two things. I'd like to bifurcate the discussion, one of which is related to deleting positions that are either funded or unfunded and vacant for periods of time. The discussion does, when we talk about deleting a position, it does not mean it's deleted forever and can never be reconsidered. If a department who has had a vacant position for more than 2 years and it's been deleted and funding comes in or a scenario changes, they can always come to your board and ask that position be re-added. And that is never a problem. And if they're concerned about the time frame for doing that and wanting to fill the position, you heard from your employee relations officer that the personnel department or the human resources department would begin recruitment prior to official approval. So it's not a permanent situation. It's just deleting positions that are either vacant and unfunded, which is a cleanup measure, and I think one of the departments mentioned that. And then second of all, for positions that are not filled within 2 years, it may be appropriate to clear the slate, and if those positions become important again, that they can come back and ask you to add those positions. With regard to the second element, which is the hiring freeze, I do believe that it does not make sense to limit departments that are non-general funded, with the exception of the fire fund, with regard to hiring. If they have sources of revenue that can fill those positions, then I think there shouldn't be a hiring freeze for those. However, for those that are relying upon general funds, and we have to remember the enormity of the situation we're in, we have a $44 million hole that we're trying to fill over 4 years, not over 1 year. And just in the 1 year that we're trying to fill it is a 5% reduction. And your board is hearing here and throughout the community how dramatic just a 5% reduction is. So we have to be vigilant and guard every single hire, because next year we may have to lay those very people off. So we need to make sure we're doing the right thing today, because we have a 4-year problem, not just a 1-year problem. And again, if the administrative office disagrees with the department, they still have the ability to come before your board and say, we don't believe that Mr. Nolan was correct in his decision whether or not to fill this position. So it doesn't limit the departments from actually filling this position if we have a disagreement. Whether it's efficient or not. I mean, currently we have a limited hiring restriction now. This would just be to make it more strict. I don't know if that would add another step. It doesn't seem that way to me. As Mr. Moore mentioned, he got on the phone when he had a vacancy and he talked to the analyst. The analyst was able to make that decision and move forward with it quite quickly. I don't see that that would be any additional issue. We cannot continue to do things the way we've always done them. We are in a budget crisis, and I can tell you right now, our greatest concern are those departments who are funding positions this year with budget savings incentives that will not be available next year. We will look at those most closely because we realize that you will only be hiring people that you have to lay off. And I know it was talked about, this is the CAO's recommended decision. It's the board's recommended decision. You are the ones who have the authority over all these issues. You are the ones who make the final decision, and it is our pleasure to serve your board and implement those issues. So those are my comments, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Just to reiterate for the public, the BSI that you talked about, that's essentially one-time money. And so you're funding positions with one-time money that you're not going to have. Many of our departments that are general fund departments are extinguishing their BSI to keep positions this year, which won't be there next year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I wanted to ask you about one of the comments that Mr. Miracle brought up, and that was the merit-based raises. I think I read in your report that there is no accounting for merit-based raises when we do a department's budget, and so these funded vacant positions are one of the means by which the departments account for those merit-based raises. So how would we do things differently moving forward in regards to the merit-based raise, which basically for the first 5 years you're going to get a certain increase as long as you meet a satisfactory determination by the department heads. So can you speak to that and how we might deal with that?
Supervisor Scrooge, through the chair, that is correct. Salary savings is a tool that is used by all of the departments, most notably those that have 50 or more employees. And what we do is we offset what we would normally pay for salaries based on a percentage that we use. Some departments will allow you just to, and we've worked with them to just reduce the overall wages by that. Some keep vacant funded positions as an alternative to that. So I think what we would need to do is work with each and every department, as we mentioned early on, that each department has a different circumstance and a different situation. We want to work through their budget process. We want to help them engaged in the budget process so that they meet the goals of this Board of Supervisors. We do not want to get in their way. We do not want to hamper them, but that's what we would do to make sure that they are able to achieve their salary savings.
And so your plan would be to meet with each individual department head, so you're treating their own specific department uniquely, and for the ones that have grant funding that they may be expecting, that's another nuance to this as well. Just looking over my notes here. Okay, I think those are all my questions that I have at this time. I'll go ahead and pass it off to my colleagues, and then I might have some more for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Scrivener. I have a couple questions for you. First of all, every time I listen to my department heads, our department heads, I can't tell you how impressed I am with your level of excellence that you bring to the game. So my hat's off to each and every one of you. Could you please explain, Mr. Nylon, how eliminating unfunded vacancies helps the general fund?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, eliminating unfunded vacant positions does not improve the bottom line of any fund. What it does is it cleans up the number of positions that have been out there for a while, and it makes it easier for us to process through those. So it doesn't save money. And frankly, depending upon the situation, deleting the funded vacant positions may not save money as well, based on what we need to do with salary savings. But it is a way so that we're constantly managing, as you would call it, the billets in each one of the departments, so that we know what they have, we know what's funded, and we know that we're holding the tightest possible rein on those.
I agree with the comments coming from some of the department heads about general and general funded billets. I agree with the critical description of a critical safety, public safety billets. I'd ask one of the department, Mr. Moore, can I ask you a question, please? Could you come down here? Just let me ask you a question. I'm just picking on you because I don't know why. Like seeing you. This is a question I would ask any of them. I'm just picking on you. How are you going to, we have a $15 correction in our budget we have to make in the next, we're spreading it out over 4 years. We're taking 5% this year. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're as lean as you can possibly get. Next year, we're going to come at you, if our preliminary budget is approved, which has been approved, actually, we're going to come after you for after you, we're going to ask you to come up with 5.6%. How are you going to do that?
Well, that's a great question. One of the things that we have sought to do is we've seen these tough times coming, and just with a generalized sense of working to save money is to try to squirrel away BSI. Not all our budget is salary, the overwhelming majority is. So the hope is to be able to weather the continued step downs in the coming years through continued careful spending decisions, critical reviews, for example, of expert engagements. Also, and it's sort of a double-edged sword. You heard the sheriff talk about how many people he has hemorrhaging out of his department that get hired away. We continue to experience that phenomena. We hire incredibly bright, talented attorneys, train them up, invest a lot of money in them, see them develop, and then get picked off by other public defender offices that pay more money, offer beach views, or perhaps are closer to their home. So we have the naturally occurring phenomena that we hire, promote, and then they leave, so we're back to hiring at the entry level. It keeps us really on our toes. It makes it very challenging because we not only have to serve criminal defendants that are charged with misdemeanors, but we have an absolute need to make sure that we develop and retain folks at the upper levels. And so in answer to your question is, one, we're probably going to continue experiencing attrition that, while challenging, provides some measure of budget relief, and by virtue of having worked to accumulate a measure of savings in our BSI, we are hopeful, optimistic, and confident that we can weather this storm until we see a cyclical improvement in the price of oil, the pension obligation bonds are paid down, and the current economic situation improves.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Thank you. Mr. Merkel? How many add deletes do you need?
I don't think I understand the nature.
Well, I think you talked about you keep a certain number of add deletes, or you make some add deletes as a way of managing.
Since I've become chief, I think I've had 2 different series of add and deletes where I've looked at what we're doing and what makes more sense and what can save money, and I've done that. The one I was speaking specifically is part of the budget that you'll be voting on next week. We'll be deleting 6 positions, adding 5 for a net loss of 1, saving money, but also the positions we're getting we feel are more relevant to the work we're doing and will be more efficient.
Okay, I got it. I was thinking the wrong thing. Those are all my notes. I see Supervisor Couch is keyed in.
Thank you. By the way, Chief, I want to compliment you on the work that you've done since you've become chief, and the types of add deletes and the changes that you've brought forward since you've been chief. I appreciate it. You've done a good job at that. So that I would like to allow every department some time to do exactly what the chief has done and others have done as well. I know the Public Works Department did it recently, a few months back as well. Before we implement the hard freeze, I think it's, well, I would like to know your opinion. Not only your opinion, Mr. Nyland, but the opinion of the department heads. How long would they need to analyze their workforce and come back with the types of add and deletes that they would like to do before we actually implemented anything like that? How long, do you have an estimate on that? Would it be different for each department? That question, and I also want to make sure that I say that I recognize, and I don't know how to deal with this. For example, I understand the probation department has maybe several vacant funded positions, but you're using that savings that you're not spending on those positions to hire people on a temporary basis, and you sort of get to find out what type of employee they would be. And I think that is a positive thing for us to do. You find out what, you save a lot of time and effort doing that and a lot of money doing it that way before you make them a full-time employee. So I don't want to, The one hesitancy I have with moving forward with the deletions is that it might preclude us from, or not allow the department heads that flexibility. So would we just have to budget separately for that type of expense instead of the full-time positions? Those are two separate questions.
Supervisor Couch, the chair, yeah, I think it would be dependent upon the department, and we have to recognize that adds and deletes, if the position has been, the funded vacant position has been around less than 2 years, this doesn't apply. If it's been around longer than 2 years, potentially you should have done your adds and deletes already. But that said, you certainly can give those departments time to think about that. We need to be careful that the adds and deletes actually do what they're intended to do, is save money, and that we don't add and delete some positions and later on fill positions and you're actually in a worse position than you are. So we need to be very, very careful with that. So, and there are ways that we can work with each department to ensure that their budgets reflect the appropriate amount of salary savings they should have without having a whole host of funded vacant positions.
Okay, and the question that the chairman posed to the public defender is the question that really is before everyone, and that is, given what the 4-year plan is, what are you going to, even though we're not even done putting this one to bed, what are you going to do next year? So we are grappling with trying to implement a policy that will help in that regard. If there are better, I love this, that every time we talk about this, there are reasons to not do anything. So I'll turn it back to you all, and I don't mean this in any disrespect. What then, if not this? Anybody can take a stab at that. Thank you.
Through the chair to Supervisor Couch, I appreciate the opportunity. I have done this before. I've been around at a point when we dropped from 220 employees to 160 employees through attrition over probably a year and a half. And that's what we intended to do here during this next coming year. Get a budget nailed down. Since March, we've been hearing somewhere between 25%. We've held positions vacant over this time. So if we were to lock down this position today, it's not what we need. Give us the flexibility to continue to shrink. I'm not hiring anybody that I don't desperately need to have, and allow us the ability to hire those that we can and need, but we will give us a number for next year and we'll meet it. That's our job. That's our job as directors of the departments, to make sure we can figure a way of getting it done.
Thank you, Paul. Are you done?
I feel,
Supervisor Couch, are you done? Yeah.
May I just, I want to supplement my answer and also address what Director Pope just said. We can't continue to shrink. And I say that as a representative of a department that provides constitutionally mandated professional services. We're dealing with a growing community. We operate essentially as a managed care provider. Look at a hospital, for example. You cannot continue to import more and more patients as the community grows and shrink resources to the delivery of services and not expect some very, very negative outcomes. And I expect that not only involves our department, but the district attorney, sheriff. The county's growing. Over the longer term, and I think as we talked about, you can have abbreviated periods of contraction. But over the longer term, I don't believe that you can solve the issue simply by shrinking when you have, at least as to professional services, increasing demands. Our lawyers won't be able to handle it. I would also offer that I think it's important to note that those that have come before me, Mark Arnold, Art Titus, were incredibly gifted and frugal managers. And so I think that we can get caught up a little bit in terms of new ways of thinking. My predecessors were so careful with appropriations, that I don't want to do them or your predecessors discourtesy or discredit with respect to the efficiencies and the lean thinking that has defined this county for many years. So we're already operating, I would submit, from a position of relative and admirable thrift, and so the pain that is being visited by these projected cuts is exquisite. And I would submit that was in part what I understood the sheriff is speaking to when he talked about the merit in looking at increasing revenues, whether it's by a sunsetting tax increase or by bridge financing to get us through lean periods. But I think it is important to recognize the reality. We can't continue shrinking professional services when we're dealing with a growing county and community.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Nylon, Mr. Pope brought up a couple good points. Could you comment on a couple of things he talked about? Do you remember what he said?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. First of all, I think with all respect to all the department heads, you couldn't have asked a more efficient department head to comment than Conrad Moore.
Right.
I mean, I think he is the one of the gold standards that we have. But at the end of the day, if nobody cuts, we don't fill this hole, and we won't fill this hole. So we either do this in a way that's thoughtful and appropriate, or we're just going to be in a situation where we're going to have to cut so dramatically and so draconian that we will not have a county that we would like to live in. With regard to Mr. Pope, he's absolutely right. I mean, we have department heads who have decades of experience and they've been through these processes. This is just a tool for your board to consider. You have department heads that you can say, I entrust to you to live within your budget and to come up with the most innovative and creative ways that you can do that. And that's an alternative tool, and it's certainly something that this board can consider, because I'm nothing but the highest regard for the department heads that we've worked with and have developed over the years. But if you want to have a tool that is more progressive and is cutting outside of their level of control, we'll be pleased to do that as well. So that's really the discussion you have before you today.
Supervisor Maggot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say first that the department heads who stood up today are an example that we could be proud of anywhere in California. They are extraordinary people at what they do. They are not my adversary, and I am not their adversary. We are in a tough spot, and we're going to do what we have to get through it. The same with Mr. Nylon and your staff. The only reason, just to piggyback on what Mr. Moore said a moment ago, the only reason we have the options we have today is because we run Kern County differently than many, many other counties do, and we have been blessed with the incredible revenue that the oil industry has given us over the years. We're going to have to get used to a new normal about how much that is, and we will. I'm confident that we will. But these are great leaders in our county government that are doing a good job. As evidenced by one of the comments that Mr. Nylon put in his report to us, though, it is possible that some departments may not manage to the net general fund cost that we must have them meet. And if they do not manage to that level, we will all suffer. The suffering is only compounded. So I believe that what we're proposing today is a necessary, even if it's evil, it's a necessary step we must take, because we must take steps that we've never taken before to get ahead of this. Now, are there ways that we should modify it on the fly as we go to make it more flexible and more nimble to be able to deal with? If we need people in the roads department who, if we don't hire them, we're going to have roads fail, and it will cost us tenfold more to fix the road, to replace the road, than it will be to repair it. Obviously, we need to spend the money to put roads people in place to do that. It is also true that in the course of a year, there will be at least 300 people attrition out of the county's employment. 300 people at $100,000 a pop, a salary of $50,000, $60,000 a year, plus all the benefits, is $30 million. Now, some of those people are not paid for by our net fund. They're not part of our general fund. They're paid for by the state, as Mr. Walker indicated earlier. But let's say a fraction of them do. That's $5 or $10 million less we're going to spend if we make sure that we don't replace everyone automatically that goes, that leaves us through attrition. And that, even if it's only $5 or $10 million, that would more than stem the cost that we've just caused the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney, and many of the public safety departments that we deal with. It would more than offset their cost. So I don't see an option that we can have other than doing this. Now, the difficult part is, in my estimation, is that we're going to see departments, their eyes are going to be big as saucers, because they're going to face the reality, how am I ever going to deliver the service that I want to deliver with the number of people that we have? Well, the reality is we cannot sustain, in my opinion, we cannot sustain the number of employees that we have with the revenue we have today. Will we again someday? Yes. But can we today? No, in my opinion. So we're going to have to find out just how far we can go in pushing down, even if it's just through attrition, departments that we think we can do that without jeopardizing the public. And in my opinion, we're not going to see a 5.6% cut across the board next year. We're going to see a cut that's going to be greater in non-public safety departments and lesser in public safety departments. There's still going to be more to cut. There is still more to cut. There's about 75 people, as I understand it, that are non-sworn personnel in the fire department. There are about 350 people, as I understand it, who are non-sworn personnel in the Sheriff's Department. I'm not singling them out to give them a hard time, but there are many people who are not carrying a fire hose or carrying a weapon into a dangerous situation when we call 911. I don't know how we're going to find the savings in that, but there is still some more savings to be had, but I don't think it's reasonable that we're going to cut everybody the same. Again, I think we're going to have to make adjustments. And this is one tool that will force the hand of every department as it faces the reality that someone is gone and we're not going to replace them. And then how do we shift those resources as we must? Because I don't believe that we can leave open that deputy's position or that prosecutor's position or that public defender's position. And there are others. I'm not going to go on and on with all the exceptions to the rule. But I don't think we have a choice other than to do that. I do think we need to build into our evaluation of our department heads those department heads who I think will be in the vast minority, but those that are struggling as to how to manage their department to hit that net fund general cost mandate that we've put on them. If they're struggling with that, we need to, and I'm going to ask the CAO to help us, we need metrics by which to measure and establish a standard and then hold those departments accountable that are struggling with it. Although the general public isn't aware of it, there are many departments that we have no influence, very little influence. I shouldn't say no because we always have some, but we don't hold accountable. That department head does not continue in our employment based upon the recommendation of this Board of Supervisors. There are elected ones, and then there are others that are appointed by the court, for example, Mr. Miracle in the probation department. Now, they are very, very good managers, but we cannot hold all of them accountable. We can only hold some of them accountable, and I want us to have the metrics and means by which to make sure that we do that effectively. So I'm not going to reiterate a bunch of things that have already been said about how we need to nuance this or be receptive to it. I am concerned about whether or not we should defer the authority to make some of these decisions to the CAO, or whether that should be consolidated at the Board of Supervisor level. I'm open to the opinions of my colleagues, the opinion of the CAO, and the opinion of the department heads, who I have great respect for. If you think it is more efficient to have that authority delegated to the CAO, and then you have the ability to appeal that back to us as members of the Board of Supervisors, I'm open to that idea. If you think it is more effective, more efficient, if it helps you get to the answer quicker that we need to get to, for you to directly bring that to us, and we, every week hereafter, we begin to have a part of our agenda, we'll deal with this question for departments. I want to hear from you that if you think that's the case. I want to do what you think is the best thing to do about that, but someone needs to be able to make those decisions and make them effectively and quickly. So I'm open to my colleagues' thoughts about that, but I think this is a move that we must make, and it won't be the last move that we make. It's the next move as we evolve into a more effective, more efficient, even though it might be unthinkable to some, a more efficient way of delivering services to the public. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Maggard. Supervisor Scrivener.
Thank you. I agree with most of what Supervisor Maggard said, but I really agree with the essence of what he was saying, which is where I was going to go. And that is, you look at, we had one department head, Mr. Pope, said, give us a budget and we'll meet it. There are going to be consequences, obviously, to the cuts that we would impose on him, but I have no doubt that he would take that cut and he would find a way, he'd find the best way to stretch those dollars out. And then we have other department heads that say, we can't cut anymore. If you cut us anymore, then these are going to be the dire consequences to public safety. And so what this is, I think, is a tool for us as a board to look at not cutting across the board everybody the same in future years. I think we're going to have to be a lot more strategic in doing so. And the only way to do that is to evaluate these positions and find out which ones are mission critical. And the board, it's our job to determine what county policy is going to be as far as mission critical. And so I appreciate Supervisor Maggard laying that out. I am comfortable with the CAO determining, at least initially, what those mission critical positions are, and then give the ability for the departments to appeal that to the board. So but I agree, this is a step that we're going to have to take. We're going to have to meet with the department heads, as I said, the CAO, one-on-one, to really get a understanding as to what these impacts will be for them and what those critical positions are. But I think we have to move forward. We're going to have to find a way to live within the revenue streams that are projected over the course of the next 4 years, and we can't do things the way we've always done them. And I think that this is a crucial step forward for us.
Thank you, Supervisor Scrivener. I agree with Supervisor Scrivener in terms of the binary decision, where do these go to make these decisions. They need to first stop, my opinion, is the CEO's office. It's more efficient, it's quicker. We meet sometimes and sometimes we don't meet, and it's just an easier and it builds a better relationship, I think, at that level, which is what we got to do. And we got to personalize this. We can't just have blanket policies. I mean, each department needs to be considered as a different and unique entity. So we're sitting here with we need a receive and file. Do you have guidance to receive and file? Do we need a motion to receive and file?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we do need a motion to receive and file, and if the board feels comfortable with it, they've exhausted the direction they wanted to provide to us, we will bring back after budget hearings the final plan. If you have other comments, we'd certainly be willing to listen to them.
Any other comments?
Chairman Gleason, I have a comment.
Yes, please.
If you want to have this be effective immediately, then you need to have a motion. If you want to delegate to the CAO the authority to do these things, in my opinion, you need a motion. So if you want it to happen today, effective today, you need to make that motion. Someone should make a motion.
Thank you. Supervisor Couch.
I want to go back and talk about, I think Supervisor Maggard brought it up, the metrics that you were asking about. Was that you were asking that would be something that we would use in the reviews of department heads?
That is correct.
I agree with that. And if in our review, I know it's August, but it'll be here, these reviews will be here before we know it. Just a general discussion in the review, I'd like to have that be an element of their review as well. Not just the metrics, but talking about the specifics of the department and what the demands are on their departments. So I'm happy to make the motion to receive and file and to implement the recommendations in the board letter, which include providing for the CAO to make that initial decision. Still appealable by the department to the board. Thank you.
We have a motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
Okay, that moves us to item 13.
That doesn't get you any credit.
Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting received by the Kern County Auditor, Controller, County Clerk. And Mr. Nylon, that's with you. Or maybe we should hear from Mr. Fluhat.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, let me move to that item. Thank you. We are very pleased to recognize the Auditor Controller for an ongoing commitment to excellence in financial reporting. The Government Finance Officers Association concurs with my recommendation. And we have included as a board letter as a reference from GFOA to Mary B. Bedard, Auditor, Controller, County Clerk, with regard to a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for its comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR. And I know you've heard from time to time comments about that. But again, this is a long-standing commitment and a long-standing achievement by your Auditor Controller, and it might be nice to have Ms. Bedard speak to that.
Ms. Bedard? Congratulations. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I would like to appreciate the nice words from Mr. Nylon, and I would like to acknowledge the excellent work of our Division Chief, Matt Henry, and his staff of accountants who spend several months every year in preparing the county's CAFR. This is the 19th year Kern County has received this award from the Government Finance Officers Association, and we will make every effort to continue our record of excellence in financial reporting in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bedard. Congratulations again. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone would like to make comment?
David Fluhart, 1st District, Havilah. I remember a long time ago, I called this up 3 years ago, and I did it incorrectly, so I got yelled at. I look fondly at it now. Get older and learn more. Anyways, so I called this up for I guess basically 4 things. First, I like awards, and I think this one's a good award to make sure we stop and recognize. The second thing is we've had a rough day. You guys are making really a lot of hard decisions, and this would be an easier, funner item to do real quickly. Only take 5 minutes. Thirdly, we're dealing with a lot of budget issues, and I'm just confused 99% of the time, so I'm just back there in the room, you know, napping almost. But at least when you're looking at your issues, you've got a really close accounting on what's exactly happening. I mean, imagine trying to figure out how to steer your boat with bad numbers. You know, at least she's right on top of it, and you can trust the numbers and you can trust where they're coming from. And lastly, the actual letter that was sent to Mr. Nylon definitely said that they hope that a public acknowledgement of this you know, accomplishment was there, and I would have to agree with that. Overall, we got hard times coming, and you might not like her answers, but at least she'll give you the correct answers. And she's got a long history of that, and that's all I have to say. Now, hopefully I did this better than 3 years ago, and hopefully I won't get yelled at.
Thank you, Mr. Fluhat.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing nobody, bring it back to the board.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Please cast your votes.
Seconding, congratulations.
Mr. Scrivener, can you reconfirm your vote? Thank you. The vote is all ayes.
Congratulations, Mary.
It's the first time you busted me, I think, since we implemented this. The new system.
Brings us to item number 25, report on first year of human resources realignment and proposed organizational restructuring, including the retitling of employee relations classification series to human resources classification series, creation of a new classification titled human resources assistant confidential at salary range 48.6, reclassification of one office services technician confidential to one human resources assistant confidential in budget unit 1310, effective August 16th, 2016, deletion of 1 office services assistant confidential, 1 office services technician confidential, 1 office services coordinator confidential, resulting in 1 layoff and 1 administrative analysis, 1 position, effective September 2nd, 2016. Whew. Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just a brief presentation on our first year as a Human Resources Division, and hopefully make it a fast afternoon for you. Just to catch everybody up to speed, the Civil Service Ordinance.
Have you been here?
I wasn't sleeping like Mr. Fluart, but I've been here. So the Civil Service Initiative Ordinance was enacted in 1956 that established the Personnel Department under the supervision of the Civil Service Commission. And at that point in time, we had removed authority of the Director of Personnel and the Personnel Department from your board and separated the human resources functions in the county. In 1996, 40 years later, Measure L was sent to the voters, and that failed to pass. The Measure L was a ballot initiative to give authority over the administration of that department to your board. And then last summer, June, your board combined all of the HR functions in the Personnel Department with the HR functions in the County Administrative Office into the new Human Resources Division. So the new Human Resources Division was established last summer, as we talked about, and over the last year, we've taken a number of steps to improve the organizational structure and move it more into a generalist HR focus rather than just the test and recruitment and payroll services that were the previous Personnel Department. That's allowed us a greater cross-functional service delivery. We also deleted the Director of Personnel and added a Principal HR Analyst at a lower salary to handle the talent acquisition functions of our department. The reclassification of personnel assistants and fiscal support specialists into a human resource career field allowed us to have greater flexibility and in the future have greater cross-training between those functions. And allow us to do more with less. We also revised the Personnel Analyst series to an HR Analyst, generalist job functionality, again, to have greater flexibility in those classifications. And of course, we separated the Commission Secretary functions to a new position that was still under the Civil Service Commission. We have developed a customer-first mentality. We focus on customer service excellence, and we are looking to provide the most efficient talent recruitment, as I mentioned earlier today. We've convened a department subcommittee on HR processes and policies. We created recruitment teams for each area of functionality in the county for enhanced responsiveness. We've modified what was previously a single employee handling our certification process to now having almost everybody in the department able to certify names to departments for hiring processes. We've increased flexibility in the department heads' ability to hire at certain step levels. We also, for what I call our low volume recruitments, where we have less than 3 applying for a department promotional or 7 for an open recruitment, we are able to certify those names immediately. And then we are also have been using operating departments such as the mental health department facilities for oral examination processes to give applicants more familiarity with the places that they'll work. We also, as you know, engaged Kern Medical and its Lean Six Sigma team for a Lean Six Sigma project that reviewed our recruitment process. When we initially evaluated that with a team of our own, we found that the baseline average for a full-scale recruitment was 65 days and included up to 199 steps. Not all of those steps are used in each recruitment, but those are the maximum steps that could have been used. The Lean Six process drove an effort to use full utilization of the NeoGov Online Hiring Center, which is a functionality of our applicant tracking system that allows departments to submit electronic requisitions and submit the results from their interviewing electronically as well, and have immediately transferred to the human resources. We've also deployed the Google Chromebooks that were engaged through the Google project a couple years ago for our oral examination and have been able to use cloud-based technology to immediately take the results from the scoring and implement those into NeoGov and have faster results given to the applicants. We've standardized our application window from what was previously 10 days to 5 days. We still have the flexibility to increase that beyond 5 days if a department asks for that, but our standard application window, now that we have an online system, we found that most people are applying immediately or at the very end of a recruitment window, so we've shrunk it to 5 days and have had no issues with that. We transitioned to an electronic application and notification process. Previously, there was written processes as well. We found that those were only used by county employees who obviously have a county email in most cases and can apply online and receive notifications through their county email. And then, of course, through this whole process, we've established a culture in our department of lean thinking to use in other critical areas like our payroll services, health benefits, and really improve upon the whole full range of what HR does for the county. And the results do speak volumes. For reoccurring recruitments where we have a list available and established for a year, if a department asks for names, we have same-day turnaround on the certification. Unless it's 5 p.m. on a Friday that they make that request. So it usually comes on the Monday. And then for new recruitments where we don't have a list established, if it's just a written examination or an oral examination, it's an average of 15 days for an entire recruitment period. And then the multi-component exams that may have an oral and a written component are averaging about 30 to 40 days. So that's a drastic improvement from the 65-day average. And our applicant notification of results is within 1 to 2 days of each examination component. And we've heard lots of county employees happy with the changes. They are surprised that they're getting their results the same day or a day later when they take the test. And through all this process, we have made no revision to the substantive portions of the civil service rules. We have deleted and replaced rules in the policy manual, but we haven't revised any of the policies in the civil service rules. So what's on the horizon for HR? That's some of the highlights of our first year. We are approaching this fiscal year with even more improvements needed and hopefully continue to improve on that process. We have approached a company called Biddle who's integrating with NeoGov to integrate with online testing. So they have a product that integrates immediately with NeoGov, our applicant tracking system, and you can take a test online, either on the computers we have here or maybe even in the future at home during a certain test window. And as soon as you get the test done, the results will be immediately transitioned into our NeoGov applicant tracking system, and so we'll have immediate notification of those results. That'll also increase access to examinations in the future, and they also have a component that allows us to utilize the tests that they have, the battery of tests that they have for our typing and bilingual certifications that employees sometimes need for some of the positions they apply for, rather than going out to a Bakersfield College or some other institution to receive those certifications. We're also exploring remote oral examination capability. We've enhanced our technology in our office, so that means we can have Skype or Google Hangouts, use those, or maybe even FaceTime, use those types of software programs to have remote oral examinations. We've tried it this past year with the Chief Communications Officer recruitment, and it was successful. We've enhanced our actual capabilities and can now hopefully do that more frequently. This will reduce the burden on applicants for having to travel to Kern County for multiple components of an application process, and will open it up to more applicants and hopefully more best and the brightest candidates. And on the same end, we are considering using taking our multi-component, so doing a written and an oral examination component on the same day, again, so that applicants who are coming from out of town in California or across the country aren't scared away by having to come to Kern County 3 or 4 times within a few months period to try to get a job with Kern County. So we hope that reduces the burden on those examinees and the travel costs that they face. And that is what we've experienced the most time-consuming portion of our recruitment, so that would knock that down quite a bit. So what we've developed this year in our department is a continuous improvement culture. We don't admit that we're perfect. We wake up every day trying to do our best and find other efficient ways to improve the process that we are dealing with here in the HR department. And that organizational philosophy is that the best is yet to come. We had a training brought to us by the Pacific Institute that was well received by our staff, and we've built on that since that training. And our constant desire to improve our service delivery is part of that philosophy as well. And we focus on achieving high quality results rather than following necessarily the strict policies or interpretations of the policies of the past, finding new creative and innovative and intuitive ways to accomplish the same mission, and not just sticking within the box that we're used to. And that's also, goes to encourage the staff to enjoy their experience with Kern County HR. And the reduction in the time and labor-intensive recruitment process that I've just explained allows us to do exactly what we're hoping to do, is more with less staff. Where, as you know, the budget implications on our department, which is currently all general fund money, is significant. So we have to do more with less over the next few years. It also allows us to have greater cross-training among our HR staff, develop a full-scale HR generalist support to operating departments, and allows us to have more time and more personnel and staff to look at the processes that we have and figure out creative ways to improve. And of course, it has allowed us to meet our budget reduction requirements in the 4-year fiscal plan outlined by the County Administrative Office. So your board is, as you know, faced with enormous challenges this year and the next few years due to the oil and gas tax revenue declines. The HR department is well aware of that. As a department, as I said, of complete general fund, we have to approach everything we do with a critical focus and look at every staff position we have to ensure that it's adequately suited and that we have the right size of our department to accomplish our mission. So with that in mind, we are proposing the following restructuring to accomplish meeting our 5% reduction for this fiscal year and getting us well on the way to meeting our 5.6% reduction that at least that we're anticipating we'll face during the next fiscal year. So part of that is to continue to build on the HR-focused organizational structure. We went through a process of changing some of the personnel department positions to HR positions, and we have not done the employee relations classifications, so we're proposing to change the titles of my position, employee relations officer, to chief human resources officer, and our deputy employee relations officer to deputy human resources officer. Those are pretty common used in private industry and as well as other counties and public agencies. And it also will give us a clear definition as an HR department. At the same time, we are asking for the creation of an HR assistant confidential classification. We've developed an HR career field with our specialists, senior specialists, and analyst series over the last year, and this is the one remaining position that we have not done. It's an entry-level HR position. It would help in a number of functions as well as handle our reception desk and would improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our department's ability to engage with departments and applicants and stakeholders. And we're asking as well, if your board approves the creation of that position, to reclassify one current vacant and funded OST position to an HR confidential, assistant confidential position. As well as the change in the HR structure, we are moving forward with some proposed deletions effective September 2nd of 2016. The items that are on the screen that are indicated as budgeted are part of our 5% reduction this year, and the other two items will get us to a place where we feel comfortable, well on our way to meeting the future anticipated reductions of next fiscal year. And so those items, our positions are our office services assistant confidential, an office services technician confidential, an office services coordinator confidential, and an administrative analyst 1 position. Of those positions, there's one that's one layoff that's anticipated will result in that, and it's an unfortunate event, but we are at a point where we need to start making some critical decisions in our department to meet our anticipated cuts. Overall, if this is approved, we will have seen a 10% reduction in allocated positions since our realignment. Though not part of this proposed restructuring, Kern County is also exploring partnerships with the Department of Public Works to pilot an effort to utilize HR staff members as full-scale HR managers for the operating departments. It's anticipated that this effort would allow the combination of the recruitment, labor, and payroll services provided by Kern County HR with the normal everyday management duties found in an operating department's HR function. If successful, this will mitigate the need to hire additional staff in the operating department and the HR department and create further synergy between Kern County HR and the Public Works Department and reduce the impact on the general fund. It will also allow for the county to develop staff with well-rounded HR expertise similar to private industry and other public agencies. We continue to work well with our operating partners, as you've heard today, to find solutions to the difficult challenges posed by the county budget, reorganization of our department, and the reduced workload that we've faced. And every solution that we generate is driven by our mission to provide continuously better HR services for the county. In total, the proposed restructuring will allow Kern County HR to meet its 5% NGFC reduction for fiscal year 2016-17 and prepare the department for anticipated future cuts that we will undoubtedly face this next fiscal year. Therefore, it is recommended that your board receive and file this report, approve the proposed restructuring, which includes the retitling of the Employee Relations Classification Series to a Human Resources Classification Series, creation of a new classification of Human Resources Assistant Confidential, item number 3060 at salary range 48.6, reclassification of one Office Service Technician Confidential, item number 3276 to one Human Resources Assistant Confidential in Budget Unit 1310, effective today. Deletion of one Office Services Assistant Confidential, item number 3281, one Office Services Technician Confidential, item number 3276, one Office Services Coordinator Confidential, item number 3261, resulting in one layoff, and one Administrative Analyst, item number 0796, in Budget Unit 1310, effective September 2nd, 2016, and authorize the Kern County HR to amend the department positions and salary schedule in accordance with this action. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Let's open to the public. Any comments from the public regarding this issue? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. I know it's been a long afternoon, so I'll keep this very brief. My name is Christine Kennedy. Currently, I'm the one who is filling the position of Office Services Coordinator, and I will be slated to be laid off. I understand the need for restructure. I've been a longtime county employee for over 30 years. The only thing I'm respectfully asking is that my position is one of those ones that is getting them ready for the next facing years, and all I'm asking as a longtime employee is to be afforded a reasonable amount of time to seek employment elsewhere. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comments and consideration. Supervisor Couch, you're first.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, first of all, I want to congratulate you because you are doing, you have done and you are doing, and you appear to be on a trajectory to do exactly what I had hoped that you would do when we approved the reorganization. So I think you've done a great job, and I just want to thank you for that, recognize you for that. And it's interesting that this is the Human Resources Department, and there's a human element to every change that we make. And I feel for you and the circumstance that you find yourself in and that you're confronted by. I guess I'd like to ask if there's, I'd like to move on your recommendation, and I'll make a motion to move on your recommendation. Maybe you could comment on the request that we just got and the circumstances surrounding it, and if there's been any, how much time has been afforded or could be.
Supervisor
Maggart.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. I'd like you to speak to it not just specific to the employee who made a request. We're going to see this happen over and over and over and over again. So I'd like us to speak as well on a broader level to how we're going to implement the consequences of all the things that we just discussed a little while ago as these positions free up and as we make changes. I think we ought to have a broader discussion about going forward. What is our plan? What can employees anticipate? And how do we communicate that to them so that they know what to expect? Thank you.
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, this is a difficult decision because of the human element, and I acknowledge that. And it's been a real tough few weeks in our department because of that. Ms. Kennedy, the person who spoke before, was notified on August 4th of the proposed action going before your board today. The effective date is approximately a month later on September 2nd. We have been more than flexible with Ms. Kennedy during this period of time to allow her time to complete applications for county employment and other counties, other jurisdictions, allowing her time off to take tests and hopefully find a landing spot because I know it's a difficult position she's being put in. And so, but she was incorrect about one thing. Her position is included in this year's budget because of the dollar value associated with her particular classification. It's a higher dollar values than some of the other positions that we're deleting, and allows us to get up to that 5% reduction. And so in order for us to meet that obligation and to really prepare us, we need to move forward with this effective as soon as we can, and that's the soonest that we could make the effective date. And I know it's not a lot of time when you're facing tough circumstances, but our department staff, as the HR department, and just as a support mechanism, are there for her to answer any questions she has and help her move in a direction that will hopefully be a positive step for her. To answer Supervisor Maggard's question through the chair, you're correct. We've faced at least one layoff already this past fiscal year, preparing for this tough budget year. But this is the first of possibly many departmental layoffs that we're going to be looking at over the next fiscal year. And the reality is we're in a really difficult position because of the fiscal hole we're trying to fill. And so the decisions that you made today moving forward with the CAO's recommendation are going to hopefully stem some of those areas and allow us to use attrition rather than deleting filled positions to meet our budget reductions. But the Department of Human Resources just is not flush with vacant positions. The only 3 vacancies that we have are the ones we're cutting, as well as Ms. Kennedy's position. But there are opportunities for us to engage with our employee associations to maybe find other creative ways to have employees find softer landing spots. We're looking at not golden handshakes, but some sort of retirement incentive packages. Those are options that we're studying internally, but just haven't been asked to move forward with. And we could bring a report to your board about those types of items as well as we head into this next fiscal year.
And Ms. Supervisor Merrick, through the chair, you may recall you were present during the 2007-2008 when we had slimmer circumstances and we engaged our employers training resource with their back to work centers to help our own employees find soft landing spots, and we will bring that back as well.
Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brown, thank you very much for your answer. I think that was a very good answer, a thoughtful answer. It's going to be very important for us to move as quickly as we can in analyzing those vacancies that we currently have, and also establishing what are the what is mission critical for each individual department, and using that to develop our budget guidelines for our departments as quickly as possible. I agree that our efforts for next year's budget starts on August 25th, if it doesn't start sooner. And by doing so, we help departments to prepare more quickly, and employees throughout the county can better know what to expect. I also want to add my congratulations to you. You've done a marvelous job with this transition, the restructuring, and with this department. So to you and the folks that work under you as your support staff, all of you, thank you very much. You've done a marvelous job. And Mr. Nylon, thank you for bringing the idea to us as well. At least I'm going to give you credit for coming up with it, and I think you'll take it. One thing I wanted to say is, when you are looking on the horizon slide, and you're looking at this ability to do remote oral examinations, those things, they do create efficiencies. You're able to get through the process more quickly, but they also are going to reduce vehicle miles traveled, which reduces pollution. And I will tell you that when we have gone out and gotten equipment to provide remote testimony for constituents that want to speak at hearings, we've gone through the air districts to pursue grants. And so if there's equipment that you're looking for, or perhaps other things that you might need in order to implement that, you can look to the San Joaquin Air Pollution Control District, as well as the East Kern Air District, and there might be some ways that we can get some grant funding to save a little bit more money. So thank you very much. I don't know if we had a second on the motion. We did, so okay, very well. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
That moves us to adjourn to Monday, August 22nd at 6 p.m. for budget hearings. Need a motion for that?